Hello everyone, welcome to What If Ichigo Was Like Kenpachi Special. Chapter 1. Life, Death, and a Child. Kurosaki Ichigo, a boy of age 15, is now standing on the threshold of death. The full reason for this is a long complicated story that would bore you to tears. The immediate reason is he fought a captain of the Gate 13. The reason for this, he was trying to save a friend from being wrongfully executed. In his near-death state as he watched the captain walk away, he had few thoughts running through his head. Damn it, I can't die now. I have to save Rukia and get Chad, Uryu, and Orihime home safely, he thought, not even realizing he used Orihime's first name. Suddenly time seemed to slow down and then come to a complete stop. He looked at the retreating back of Kenpachizaraki and saw his sword standing beside him. Do you want to fight, he asked, and without even waiting for an answer he continued. The fighter to live, chose he finished staring at Ichigo dead in the eye through his dark-tinted glasses. Want to win was barely heard. I can't hear you, he replied calmly. I want to win, it's pointless to just live, it's pointless to just fight, I want to win, yelled Ichigo at the top of his lungs. Very well, I'll take you there, was his only reply. In a dark flash both disappeared. When everything cleared he was standing on the side of a building in his mindscape. He then remembered the last time he was here. He fell, it was as simple as that. He rushed to push his body to the edge of a window ledge and tried to keep his body as close to the window as possible. What are you doing, asked Zangetsu in an annoyed voice. If I don't do this I'll fall, he almost screamed. You don't need to worry about that. When you were turning into a hollow your inner world started breaking apart piece by piece, but now it's different. Look, even after such a fierce battle, your inner world is still fairly normal, said Zangetsu. Wait. What do you mean normal? How is this kind of upside down effect normal? Asked Ichigo confused. You have really become strong, said Zangetsu continuing. Wow, pretending not to hear me, said Ichigo annoyed. Stand up, Ichigo, said Zangetsu. Once Ichigo did, Zangetsu threw him a sword without a sheath. Ichigo fumbled with it, trying not to cut himself with the blade. That was very dangerous, man, who the hell passes a sword like that, yelled Ichigo pissed. Take it. It's yours, was all he said. Eh? But Mr. Zangetsu, this is, but before he could finish Zangetsu cut him off. Asauchi. It's the class of nameless zanpakuto that all low-class Shinigami wield, said Zangetsu with disdain. No. I mean, this isn't my zanpakuto. Mine is Zangetsu, he started only to be cut off again. Zangetsu, as in the one your enemy broke just now, he said before continuing. I can't give this to you, he finished before throwing said zanpakuto over the edge of the building. What are you doing, yelled Ichigo as he made a mad dash to get Zangetsu. Down, boy, yelled a new voice before overtaking Ichigo and catching Zangetsu. The figure caught Zangetsu and landed on the building right next to them, cracking the cement. He was dressed in the exact same thing as Ichigo, except the colors were exact opposites. His teeth were black and his skin a deathly white. He looked almost like a clone of Ichigo, with the exact same features. What the hell are you, Ichigo asked, sweating profusely. What a mean thing to say, partner, said hollow Ichigo, now to be called Shirosaki for simplicity's sake. Now begins the test to see if you are worthy of wielding me. If you want to wield me again, take me back with your hands. Your opponent is yourself, said Zangetsu. Haha. Yeah, take it back, said Shirosaki tauntingly. He charged at Ichigo and swung in a downward arc. Ichigo barely had enough time to put up a defense. He pushed back with all his might, but Shirosaki just wouldn't budge. I can't push him back, thought Ichigo, terrified. Shirosaki forced Ichigo back several meters and let out a massive amount of Ryatsu. So strong, Zangetsu is so strong, the spiritual pressure alone is pulverizing the stuff around it. It's a monster sword compared to that. A nameless zanpakuto is like a wooden stick. Using such a useless thing, it's impossible to win, thought Ichigo. What are you doing, partner? If you just stand there, said Shirosaki before he threw Zangetsu while holding on to the hilt scarf. What was the only thing Ichigo could think? I missed, said Shirosaki annoyed. He pulled Zangetsu back and started spinning it above his head. Using the scarf to spin Zangetsu? What kind of fighting style is that? I've never even thought of something like that, thought Ichigo, distraught. Hey, you're really ridiculous. You had such a powerful sword. How did you end up on the ground half dead, bleeding like crazy? I don't understand how that could have happened. Do you think that a complete stranger will suddenly become your best friend if you ask him his name? Asked Shirosaki tauntingly. What? Was all Ichigo could say. I'm talking about your sword. Do you think you would be able to use Zangetsu fully just by knowing its name? You only think of yourself, never drawing on Zangetsu's power. This isn't all there is to Zangetsu's power. If you open up and lend it your power, it will become even stronger, but you can't do that. You won't rely on your zanpakuto. You think all you need to do is to train yourself and you will become stronger, finished Shirosaki while throwing Zangetsu at Ichigo again. That's true. I never tried to understand or get to know the old man Zangetsu. A zanpakuto isn't just a tool. Each has its own name and my zanpakuto has no name. That's good to know, that means your zanpakuto won't get any stronger. That's good to know, what a joke. We're the same. I'm the same as him. All I know is the name, but I really don't know anything about the old man's zanjetsu. Only knowing the name is the same as not knowing anything. I'm exactly the same as the guy who doesn't know the name of his zanpakuto. I want to know, thought Ichigo as he came to a revelation. Boy, time to end this. I'm going to show you the right way to use zanjetsu. Since you probably won't ever learn how to do it to save your life, said Kurosaki while charging Ichigo to finish him off. Can you tell me about yourself? Even if it's just a little bit, tell me about you. I want to know how to borrow your power. Please tell me, and then once more you and me will fight again together. Old man, pleaded Ichigo. Just as Kurosaki was about to strike, both noticed that zanjetsu was once again in Ichigo's hands. But, said Kurosaki, stunned. Does this mean you will give me one more chance? Thanks, old man, thought Ichigo. Suddenly he exited his mindscape with a surge of power. What the hell, this spiritual pressure, thought Kenpachi. Back in the mindscape, zanjetsu dismissed Kurosaki. He stood staring at the sky and repeated the thoughts that always ran through his head. Ichigo, I hate rain. It rains here too. When you are moody, it becomes cloudy. When you are sad, the rain comes down. I can't stand it. Can you understand? How horrible it is to get rained on when you are all alone in an empty world. In order to prevent that from happening, I'll lend you whatever power you need. If you can trust me, I won't let one drop of rain fall from the sky. Trust me, you aren't alone in battle, Ichigo, said zanjetsu for Ichigo to hear. Back to the real world. What happened? His fading spiritual pressure suddenly burst out in a tremendous amount. The bleeding on the wound is slowly stopping, thought Kenpachi. Before he could continue his observation, Ichigo charged. The sudden attack caught Kenpachi so off guard that Ichigo gave him a long deep wound on his left shoulder. Ichigo turned zanjetsu to swing up for another attack, but Kenpachi blocked. I can't push him back, thought Kenpachi. Ichigo continued his assault until Kenpachi's guard broke and he got another gash the same size as the one on his left shoulder on his right. The force of the attack sent him skidding back several meters, and he would have continued if he didn't slow himself down with his zanpakuto. Kenpachi was doubled over, huffing and puffing. Sorry, but I don't have time to waste here. I'm going to finish this in one strike, said Ichigo. Finish in one strike? That's not good, it's just starting to get interesting, isn't it? Said Kenpachi, yelling the last part. We should drag this out as long as we can, he continued yelling as he charged Ichigo. Ichigo pulled up zanjetsu and thrust it forward right into Kenpachi's face. He just moved to the side as the blade cut him, grinning like a maniac. He moved his sword for a thrust and grazed Ichigo's cheek. I don't get it. How did you revive yourself? How did you get so strong? I don't get it at all, but that doesn't matter. Right now we should just enjoy the moment, said Kenpachi, laughing all the while, with a maniacal gleam in his eye. Damn it, I'm winning here and both successful number of attacks and spiritual pressure. But no matter how much I cut him, he won't stay down, thought Ichigo. You're crazy. Ridiculously crazy. Do you like to fight that much that you're not afraid to die? Asked Ichigo. I'm crazy, you're the one who's crazy. You're so strong, why don't you like to fight? Enjoy it, enjoy the carnage, enjoy the pain, there's a small price to pay for the enjoyment of battle, said Kenpachi. The battle continued for a little while before Kenpachi came to a conclusion. Ichigo was just a little better than him in his current state. How long has it been since I've last had this noble feeling, said Kenpachi, removing his eye patch. A huge burst of spiritual pressure engulfed the area. Just as he was removing the eye patch, a messenger came up behind Yuichiro, Kenpachi's adopted daughter and vice captain. Vice Captain Kusajishi, an emergency order, said the messenger. Okay, tell me later, said Yuichiro, not taking her eyes off the fight below. I'm sorry, but this order is sent under the combined authority of Captain Commander Yamamoto and Captain Hitsugaya. It's a first-class order, continued the messenger. Okay, tell me later, repeated Yuichiro, quickly losing her patience. But started the messenger, only to be cut off by Yuichiro. You're so noisy, Ken-chan is fighting, so stop bugging me, she said, finally turning around, releasing high amount of spiritual pressure that seemed to take the form of a tiger head above her. Ichigo couldn't believe how much spiritual pressure came off Kenpachi in waves. How come his spiritual pressure increases so much after he takes off his eye patch, thought Ichigo. So what's the deal with your right eye? Why did your spiritual pressure increase so much when you removed the patch, asked Ichigo. You see this eye patch? It's really a little Ryatsu-eating monster I had the freaks at the R&D come up with for me to use. You should feel honored. Once I remove it, it means I'm giving my all. I haven't needed to do that in, well, it's actually the first time since I got the thing, said Kenpachi, smiling like a maniac again, except this time it was even wider. Do you hear it, Ichigo? Do you hear his blade mourning? Asked Zanjetsu. Yeah. He has never listened to that voice. If they do not trust each other while fighting side by side, they will diminish each other's strength. For someone who believes in his own strength, it is impossible to understand that. Ichigo, do you trust me? Asked Zanjetsu. Of course. I'll give you all of my power, use it as you like, and then please lend me yours, said Ichigo solemnly. Yeah, was his only reply. As soon as Zangetsu said that, Ichigo's spiritual pressure rose to that of Kenpachi's. So you can increase your spiritual pressure even now? Interesting, said Kenpachi, grinning even wider. Of course I can. I'm borrowing Zangetsu's power and fighting side by side with him. I'll never lose to someone who only fights by himself, replied Ichigo indignantly. Zangetsu? Is that the name of your Zanpakuto? Borrowing the power of your Zanpakuto, fighting beside your Zanpakuto, that's bullshit. Zanpakuto are just tools of war. Fighting side by side with a Zanpakuto is just the whining words of those too spineless to fight by themselves. It's not something someone like you and me should say, Ichigo said Kenpachi. He's coming, my ability to stop your wound from bleeding is at its limit. Take him down with one blow, said Zangetsu. Ichigo flared his spiritual pressure and both men charged. The explosion from the collision was massive, leveling any buildings within the blast radius. When the smoke cleared, two figures were clearly visible in the center. Ichigo was impaled in his side with Kenpachi's Zanpakuto. But Kenpachi was impaled in the shoulder at an angle that completely severed his carotid artery. He knew his end was near, so he said a few things to the barely conscious Ichigo. Listen, I want you to do a few things for me. First, take care of Yuichiro for me, be the father that I couldn't. Next, please take my Zanpakuto and wield it with Zangetsu, be the warrior I could not and learn its name. Lastly, take my name so all will know it's you who is the strongest fighter in all of Sirte, asked Kenpachi before he fell over backwards dead. Ichigo with the last of his consciousness said, I will, Kenpachi. I will be the father Yuichiro needs, I will be the warrior you should have been, I am Kenpachi ichigokurosaki, he shouted to the heavens as a bright light struck him. Behind him could be seen a silhouette of Kenpachi grinning his maniacal grin. Yuichiro jumped out of her hiding spot and walked over to the newly christened Kenpachi just as he passed out. In the streets of Sirte. Ryu, did you hear that? It sounded like Kurosaki-kun, asked Orihime, a buxom brunette. Yes, I did, I also felt his Riatsu increase by an insane amount. Whatever he got himself into, he should be fine, replied the bespectacled man while thinking, Kurosaki, if you don't come out of this unharmed then at least come out alive, for Orihime's sake. At an undisclosed location several hours later, Kenpachi Ichigo Kurosaki was finally waking up from his battle with Kenpachizaraki. Well, it's about time, Ichigo. I was starting to wonder if you would ever get up, said Yoroichi in that deep voice of his. Shut up, besides that's not my name anymore. After I killed Zaraki he gave me his name and sword and Yukairu, holy shit, I'm a father, he screamed. Pen-chan, you're awake. I was so worried about you, said Yuichiro as she glomped onto Kenpachi. Yes, I better start watching my language. Oh man, my dad and sisters are going to freak out so much when they learn about this, thought Kenpachi. He just held his new daughter and stroked her hair as she hugged him. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. Well, as touching as this is, we need to get back to business. Kenpachi, do you notice anything odd about Zangetsu and your new sword, asked Yoroichi. Both are sealed, said Kenpachi. Correct, but what else, pressed Yoroichi. Both are the size of a regular katana, responded Kenpachi. Correct, but now can you answer the question why? Your control over spiritual pressure is abysmal, so how are you controlling it enough to control the size, asked Yoroichi, perplexed. No idea, but all that means to me is I can use both at the same time. Maybe they will complement each other, said Kenpachi happily. By the way, how did I get here, he asked, looking around the strange cave-like room he was in. Simple, I carried you and Yuichiro followed, saying something about Zaraki giving you things, said Yoroichi. Thanks, it must have been awkward you having that small body and all. And I'm pretty heavy too, he said. Oh, I just transformed into my true form, it was easy then, said Yoroichi nonchalantly. Wait, true form? Inquired Kenpachi. As an answer, Yoroichi started to turn into his human form. When the smoke cleared, standing in the place of the cat was a buxom woman with purple hair and dark skin. Oh, did I mention she was completely naked? That's your true form, yelled Kenpachi. I love the surprised look on people's faces when they see I'm a girl, said Yoroichi in a much more feminine voice. I think it's more from the fact that you're stark naked, yelled Kenpachi, covering both his and Yachiro's eyes. You think, asked Yoroichi. Yes, now put some cloths on, said Kenpachi, irritated. He's never thought you'd be such a prude. Are you sure you don't want another look? It may be the only chance you get, said Yoroichi. Before he could come up with a response, he felt a wave of familiar Riatsu. It came from Byakuya Kichiki, the man responsible for bringing his own sister to Sirte to be executed. He noticed a strange device and felt compelled to pick it up. When he channeled his Riatsu into it, it transformed into something that flied. I'm going, was all he said. He bolted to the door and Yuichiro latched onto his shoulder like she did for Zaraki, and they both flew off to save their comrades. Chapter 2. The Reluctant Captain. Kenpachi Ichigo Kurosaki, a man of only 15 years old, flew towards the intense spiritual pressure that belonged to the one man he hated with a passion. He flew fast so as to protect his comrades from Byakuya, a man who brought his own sister back to Sirte just to be executed. I will protect you guys. I will save Rukia. I will come back to the one I love kept running through his head while his daughter clung to his shoulder. Den-chan, we're close to the repentant cell. There are 2 captains there so we better be careful, said Yuichiro, the aforementioned daughter. Alright Yuichiro, hold on tight, I'm really going to pour on the speed now, replied Kenpachi. They traveled on in silence for a few minutes until the repentant cell came into view. The sight there made his blood run cold and his anger flare. Lying on the ground was Ganju Shiba, cut to ribbons but somehow still alive. Standing a few feet away was Hinataro, forced to his knees by the intense spiritual pressure. Standing about 2 meters behind him was the objective of this whole mission, Rukia Kichiki. On the opposite side of the bridge was a captain he had never seen with white hair that went down to his mid-back. Finally, halfway across the bridge stood Byakuya Kichiki, his zanpakuto raised to strike the finishing blow on Ganju. Seeing this made his blood go from freezing to boiling in an instant. He raised his spiritual pressure so that it dwarfed even Byakuya's. Byakuya's eyes widened at the spiritual pressure because it felt familiar to him but stronger than ever before. It was a spiritual pressure he was sure he extinguished nearly 3 weeks ago. Turning to the side, he saw a shadowy image rise to the sky. As he looked up, he saw the one he hoped to never see again. The only man he secretly feared. He saw Ichigokurosaki adorned in Shinigami robes with 2 zanpakuto strapped on either side of his waist. In his right hand was a strange relic that had a single wing sprouting out of it. He landed in front of Byakuya, blocking his advance from reaching Ganju and the others. Why are you here, boy? I thought I ended your Shinigami career when I brought my sister back here, said Byakuya with his usual stoic facade and bored expression. Don't ever say that, replied Kenpachi. Say what? Asked Byakuya. Don't ever call yourself a brother. You haven't earned the right to do that, spat Kenpachi. And why is that, responded Byakuya. Do you know why the big brother is born first, asked Kenpachi, confusing everyone except for Rukia. What does that have to do with anything, asked Byakuya, losing his patience. Everything. The big brother is born first so he can protect all the little brothers and sisters that come after him. Bringing your sister here to be put to death and not even trying to save her means that you lost all rights to be called a big brother, yelled Kenpachi. Enough of this, it is time, I said Byakuya, only to be interrupted by Rukia. I told you to stay behind Ichigo. Why didn't you listen to me, asked Rukia, close to tears. That's not my name anymore. And I don't care what you say, I'm saving you whether you like it or not, said Kenpachi. What the hell do you mean that's not your name, and you should always listen to the person you're trying to save, retorted Rukia. Not when they don't know what's good for them, and I changed my name. No, that's not right, more like it was given to me, said Kenpachi. Who gave it to you, asked Rukia, surprised. The only Shinigami I ever killed, he gave me not only his name but his sword as well and something else. It was Kenpachi Zaraki, captain of the Gate 13, 11th squad. He gave me his name, sword, and Yuichiro, said Kenpachi, saying the last part nonchalantly. This startled everyone on the bridge. All of them had their jaws dragging on the ground, including Byakuya. It's the apocalypse, run for your lives. So where is Yuichiro if she is as you claim, said Byakuya, regaining his composure. How you mean she's not on my back, said Kenpachi, twisting and looking to see if she was there. No, was the collective reply. Just great, Yuichiro, if you don't get over here by the time I count to 5, you'll be grounded from candy for month, yelled Kenpachi, causing everyone to face fault except for Ganju, who is still lying on the ground miraculously alive. 1 2 3 4, and just as he was about to say 5, Yuichiro popped up in front of him like she sprouted from the bridge itself. You called Ken-chan? She asked in her usual bubbly voice. Good, now that you're here we need to take out the threats here. You take care of that white-haired captain, and I'll take care of Byakuya team here, said Kenpachi. Kenpachi, you can't really consider having a child fight against a captain. She'll die, without a doubt, shouted Rukia with wide eyes. Have faith in me, Rukia, no, better yet, have faith in her. I wouldn't ask this of her if I didn't believe she could do it, said Kenpachi with a distant look in his eye. Alright Ken-chan, let's go have fun, said Yuichiro as she charged the unknown captain. I guess it's now just you and me, team, said Kenpachi, looking at Byakuya with a bored look in his eyes. So it appears, said Byakuya. Let's cut the chit-chat and get this party started, said Kenpachi, drawing his 2 zanpakuto. Fine, said Byakuya before he disappeared. At least that's how it seemed to everyone except for the captains and Kenpachi. Clang was heard on the bridge. Everyone looked to see what it was. Kenpachi had maneuvered one of his zanpakuto to block the stab coming from Byakuya. Everyone was stunned with wide eyes. Nobody had ever blocked Byakuya from his shunpo attack. Kenpachi tried to take advantage of the momentary lapse of movement by diagonally slashing at Byakuya. He was a fraction of a second too slow, and Byakuya dodged just in time. He charged in for a frontal assault, swinging his zanpakuto in a horizontal arc. Kenpachi blocked and swung in a downward vertical arc with his other zanpakuto. The battle raged on for a few minutes, neither man gaining the upper hand. In the final clash they separated. "I've had enough of this boy, if you think you can stand up to me then you are gravely mistaken." Gorogoro Senbon was all Byakuya could say before a white cloth wrapped around his blade. Now Byakuya play nice," said a figure with a lithe form indicating a woman and her face covered by a cream-colored cloth. "Yoruichi, I hope to never see you again. You have shamed one of the great noble families of Sirte. Why are you here?" said Byakuya with venom in his voice. Instead of responding she just jumped down and stabbed Kenpachi in the stomach. "You bitch, what the hell was that for?" yelled Kenpachi in a rage. Firstly that was medicine to help with your wounds and secondly it was meant to knock you out," said Yoruichi sheepishly. "Well that second part really went according to plan didn't it?" said Kenpachi sarcastically. "Shut up, it was a sound plan," said Yoruichi. "Well Byakuya, let's continue shall we?" said Kenpachi. "Oh no you don't," said Yoruichi, who wrapped another cloth around Kenpachi and lifted him up on her shoulder. "Hey, put me down, I have to finish this." "Come on, just let me cut him once," yelled Kenpachi. "Kind of reminds you of the original when it was Jin carrying him off. "In 3 days," said Yoruichi. "What?" asked Byakuya. "In 3 days I will make this boy strong enough to defeat you," clarified Yoruichi. "It doesn't matter, 3 days or 300 years, that boy will never catch up to me," said Byakuya defiantly. "We'll see," said Yoruichi. "Damn it, Yuichiro, come on, playtime's over," said Kenpachi. "Oh well, but I wanted to play with Whitey-chan more," whined Yuichiro. "I know, me too, but we have to. Yoruichi Abe-chan says it's time to go," said Kenpachi, resigning himself. "Okay Ken-chan," said Yuichiro sadly. "What the hell just happened?" asked Ganju with his eye twitching as the trio left. "I honestly have no idea," said the unknown captain looking like hell warmed over. "Captain Yukitake, what happened to you?" asked Rukia with wide eyes. "Yes Yushiro, do tell," asked Byakuya. "I will never fight that little hell spawn ever again, it's way too hazardous to my health," said the now named Yushiro Yukitake. Byakuya turned to leave when stopped by Yukitake. "Byakuya, what are you doing? We have work to do," he said. "I have no interest in those weaklings," was the only reply he got. "Back with Kenpachi." "Ichiru," said Kenpachi. "Yes Ken-chan," she responded. "Okay, enough with the Ken-chan, I'm your father now. Please call me Two-san or even Two-chan if you want," said Kenpachi with a smile. Really, I can call you Two-chan," said Yuichiro tearing up slightly. "Yes, I would prefer it if you would," said Kenpachi. "Thank you Two-chan," said Yuichiro latching onto his neck and crying. "Hey now easy, it's alright." "What's the matter?" asked Kenpachi, wishing his arms weren't tied to his sides. "You said I could call you Two-chan. Ken-chan told me to never call him that, he said it would make me more reliant on him and thus weaker," said Yuichiro sniffling. "Don't worry about that now, just call me Two-chan if you want." "No matter what, I will be your father," said Kenpachi smiling. "Thank you," she said again. "Now for what I wanted to ask you to do, please go find one of my friends. She is the only girl of the group and is very important to me," said Kenpachi. "Is she going to be my Ka-chan?" asked Yuichiro excitedly. "Maybe, but for now please just find her and tell me where she is. She has long chestnut hair, beautiful brown eyes, is about 5'5", and is probably one of the most buxom women you'll see," said Kenpachi blushing at the last part. "Okay Two-chan, I'll find her and tell you," said Yuichiro as she bounded off excitedly. "That was a good way to get rid of her, with her sense of direction she'll be gone for days," said Yoruichi. "You're wrong, her sense of direction is better than most. What she did to Zaraki was a game to her. She wanted to see how long she could misdirect him before they actually came across their quarry," said Kenpachi, shocking Yoruichi. "Wow, I never knew anyone had the guts to do that. Then again I also thought nobody had the balls to actually kill Zaraki," said Yoruichi. "I always have been someone to surprise others," said Kenpachi with a smirk. "Well maybe you'll surprise us again, this method is dangerous, but it should enable you to reach the next level of soul release. It's called Bankai and it should raise your power by a significant amount," said Yoruichi. "Let's get to it then," said Kenpachi. With Ichiro was speeding towards the 11th Division barracks to recruit several members to help her search for Kenpachi's friend. When she arrived she immediately looked for Yumichika and Ikaku to help her. "Oldie-chan, Swan-chan, I need your help," she called while running throughout the barracks. "What do you need, Lieutenant?" asked Ikaku with Yumichika right beside him. "Swan-chan, I need you to alter Ken-chan's Haori. Make it to these specifications," she said, pulling Kenpachi's measurements out of nowhere. "But Lieutenant, these measurements are far too small for the captain, although I do like the change in colors," said Yumichika being his metro-hexual self. "Just do it," she said, losing her patience. "Alright, just settle down," said Yumichika trembling. "And me, Lieutenant?" asked Ikaku. "I need your help finding a certain Ryoka. It's a girl with long brown hair and brown eyes, about 5'5", and pretty big in the chest area, at least that's what Two-chan says," said Yuichiro, slipping on what she meant to call Kenpachi. "We have the Ryoka you're looking for, follow me," said Ikaku, narrowing his eyes. He led her to the dojo where they could hear a struggle going on. They opened the shoji doors to see a terrible sight. The Ryoka was being held down spread eagle with most of her cloths missing and a gag in her mouth. Yachirosa's eyes widened and she jumped forward to stop them from harming the woman she would hope to call Kachan. "Stop this right now," she yelled, startling them into silence. The aura she was exuding was murderous. Some even thought that the captain would back off if she said to now. "All of you would best step away from her or Ken-chan will kill you," said Yuichiro angrily. "And why would that be, Lieutenant?" asked one of the non-seated grunts. "Because Ken-chan says that she is his woman. If he saw this you would already be dead now," she replied with venom in her voice. "Well then why don't you get him and we'll see. Besides I doubt he would care if we took her for a test ride first," said the same grunt laughing. "Fine, Ikaku, keep an eye on them and make sure they don't do anything stupid," said Yuichiro. "Yes, Lieutenant," said Ikaku, snapping to attention. Everyone in the room was dumbfounded. Yuichiro wasn't using his nickname, this had never happened before. "I'll be back in a few minutes and then well I really don't want to see what Ken-chan does," said Yuichiro using Shunpo. Back with Kenpachi. "So how am I going to do this?" asked Kenpachi. "Well first you have to," she started before being cut off by Yuichiro. "Fu-chan, we have an emergency," she yelled. "What is it?" asked Kenpachi, getting worried. "I know where Kachan is, but you have to come save her now before she gets hurt really badly," said Yuichiro in a hurry. "But what about training?" asked Yoroichi. "Training can wait, Orihime needs me now," said Kenpachi following Yuichiro out. "Fu-chan, I had Ikaku keep an eye on them to give us a little time, but he isn't fully healed, so they may try to jump him. We need to hurry to make sure she will be okay," said Yuichiro fearfully. "Alright, top speed, give me directions," said Kenpachi, charging on instinctively using Shunpo alongside Yuichiro. They moved as fast as they could, heading to the 11th Division dojo. "Listen to Chan, only you can get them to stop, but to do that you'll have to be a captain. They won't listen to me because I'm so young," said Yuichiro. "I really don't want to, but if it's to save Orihime I'll do anything," replied Kenpachi with determination. They opened the shoji doors to reveal a scene even worse than earlier. Orihime was still forced spread eagle, but now she was completely naked and the grunt who challenged Yuichiro was fingering her with one hand while the other was pinching her left nipple. Ikaku and an unknown Shinigami were being sat on by two mid-ranking officers each. When the doors opened everyone stopped what they were doing to look. When they saw it wasn't the Kenpachi they were thinking of, they relaxed. They thought they were safe. "Hey Brad, I thought you said you were bringing Zaraki." "Who's that kid?" said the grunt with his finger in Orihime. "I said I was brining Ken-chan. Ken-chan gave him his name and his sword and me. And with all these things it makes him the new captain of 11th squad," said Yuichiro simply. After she declared this everyone burst out into laughter. "Just because he was given those things doesn't make him captain material. The kid looks like he would piss himself at the first sign of danger," chuckled the grunt who went back to what he was doing. "Did I mention he killed Ken-chan?" said Yuichiro in an offhand voice. This stopped everyone in the room cold. Everyone looked at him again, or more specifically his eyes. In his eyes they saw a rage beyond words and just a glint of the same insanity that was always in Zaraki's eye. "Tell me, who started this?" said Kenpachi, speaking for the first time since they got there. "It was him," said Ikaku, indicating the grunt with his hand still in Orihime. Faster than any of them could see, said grunt was pinned to the wall with a zanpakuto hilt sticking out of his head. Everyone scattered to the walls of the dojo as far away from Orihime as they could get. Kenpachi slowly walked up to Orihime just as Yumichika walked into the room with the new Haori. "Lieutenant, I have the new Haori ready for the captain," he said, trailing off when he saw what was going on in the room. "It'll give them to Tu-chan," said Yuichiro. She took the Haori and walked up to Kenpachi. "Thank you, Yuichiro," he said, accepting them from her. He didn't put them on though, he continued to Orihime. When he got there he started talking to her softly. "Hey Orihime, open your eyes, it's me, Kurosaki-kun." The second he said that her eyes shot open. She looked at the face of the one man she loved more than anything in the world. "Kurosaki-kun," she said weakly. "I'm here, Hime, I'm here and I'm never letting them hurt you again," said Kenpachi. The second he said that she shot into his arms crying her eyes out. Kenpachi took the Haori and wrapped her up in it, holding on tightly but gently. "Kurosaki-kun, it was terrible, I couldn't do anything. All I could think was please let Kurosaki-kun come. I was so afraid, please never leave me, please," she begged in between her sobs. "I promise, Hime, I will never leave you again. I will always love and protect you," he said without completely thinking. "You love me even after what they did to me, you don't think of me as a slut or a whore?" she asked with tears running down her face in a greater flow. He just held her tighter, carefully cradling her head. "I would never think of you like that. You will always be my precious Hime," said Kenpachi lovingly. This just made her cry harder into his chest, gripping him as if he were her only hold on reality. "So Captain, what are your orders?" asked Ikaku, shaking because he was afraid to break the tender moment. "Alright, gather together all the bastards who were involved in the incident when I walked in. Tie them up in the courtyard and gather together the entire squad. It's time to make an example of those who hurt my Hime," he said. "Yes sir," replied Ikaku. "You there with the funky eyebrows, what's your name?" asked Kenpachi. Asagawa Yumichika sir, what may I do for you, said Yumichika with a formal bow. Yumichika, I want you to find some cloths for Orihime to wear, she can't go around like this, said Kenpachi. Right away captain, what are her measurements so I can alter the uniforms if need be, asked Yumichika. I have them right here, Swan-chan, said Yuichiro popping out of nowhere. How does she know them, asked Kenpachi confused. Who knows, it's just a special talent of hers. She takes one look to a person and can tell the measurements down to the millimeter, replied Yumichika. Well, hurry up. And you there, what's your name, he asked, indicating the other Shinigami that was being sat on. I have no name, said the Shinigami. Well, I need to call you something, and I refuse to call you Nanashi, said Kenpachi. Well, I have always liked the name Kage Kajiranai, said the man. And that's your name. Glad to have you aboard, Kajiranai, said Kenpachi. Thank you, sir. I was wondering if you would like a new fourth seat after you punished the current one, that is, asked Kajiranai. I don't think that will be a problem, you do have the strength for it, don't you, asked Kenpachi, raising an eyebrow. Of course, I was going to ask Captain Zaraki if I could challenge the current fourth seat, that was before he died, that is. Is he on the list of people to be punished, asked Kenpachi. Yes sir, he and the current sixth seat jumped me, or I would have helped Takaku keep them in line. If it wasn't for his injuries and being jumped, they wouldn't have won. But I'd say give him a few days and he'll be as good as new, said Kajiranai. Good, because for that time I'll be training. And when I'm done we rescue Rukia Kichiki, said Kenpachi. Yes sir, replied Kajiranai. Let me, when the entire squad is assembled, I have something I need to do. And drop the formalities, I really hate that, said Kenpachi. Of course Kenpachi, said Kajiranai with a smirk. That's more like it, replied Kenpachi, walking off with Orihime in his arms bridal style. Mindscape. Kenpachi stood in place looking around. He saw old man Zangetsu standing on his pole as usual, but he didn't see his other Zanpakuto anywhere. Hey old man, where's the new guy, asked Kenpachi. Don't you mean new girl, said a very feminine voice behind him. He whirled around to face it. He saw a vision of stunning beauty clothed in the finest silk. Blonde hair as tall as he was, with stunning blue eyes and a killer body. In her left hand was a set of golden scales and in her right a shining sword. All in all, she was the second most beautiful girl he ever saw, second only to Orihime, that is. Sorry about that, so you're my new guest, he asked, being as polite as he could be. Yes, now hold still and let me get a good look at you, she said. He complied, waiting patiently for her assessment to be over. Well, he at least looks better than my last master. But tell me boy, what makes you think you're worthy of wielding me, she asked, narrowing her eyes. The only answer I have to that is I'm probably not, he said nonchalantly. What, she asked, dumbfounded. She was expecting a multitude of answers, but that wasn't one of them. She was expecting him to say that he was such a great fighter and how honored she should be to have him even look at her. She never expected him to say that he wasn't worthy. Just like I said, I'm probably not worthy. Hell, I don't even think I'm worthy of Zangetsu. But he feels as if I am, and that means a lot to me, replied Kenpachi, surprising her yet again. Well then boy, I guess the only reward worthy of you is my name, she said. Thank you, if you see fit to tell me anything about yourself I would be greatly honored. All of my power is at both of your beck and call. Just ask and I will gladly give you everything, he replied. Thank you, now when you need me just say my name, it's Real World. 11th Squad Courtyard 15 minutes later. Alright, listen up, I'm only going to say this once, I do not tolerate those who hurt my friends or family. Now today 15 of you have done just that. They will be punished accordingly, but first one of them will be given a fighting chance. He will face punishment regardless, but this will determine how bad it will be. Kajiranai, come forward and earn your place as the fourth seed in this division under my command, yelled Kenpachi for the entire squad to hear. When Kajiranai and the fourth seed entered the courtyard, everyone was silent. Hajime, said Kenpachi. You won't win, I'm the fourth seat for a reason, you know, and you're just a powerless grunt, said the man. Enough talk, we fight, said Kajiranai. Fine, then taste the power of my shikai, yelled the man, raising his zanpakuto above his head. Kajiranai just charged forward saying, Katsu, while swinging upward. Before the fourth seat could say anything he was cleaved in half vertically. I don't even need my shikai to defeat scum like you, he said, spitting on the body. Winner and new fourth seat Kage Kajiranai, said Kenpachi happily. Now for the rest of you, you are all sentenced to death, he said, shocking all present. What have they done to deserve that as punishment, asked one random seated officer. They attempted to rape the woman I love, he said with venom in his voice. That shut everyone up. He walked up to the 14 remaining squad members. And pulled out his zanpakuto. I just learned the name of my new zanpakuto, and I think it's fitting to use her shikai on those who hurt my hime. Now Batsu can't shiki, he said. In a burst of Riatsu, the entire zanpakuto disappears and reforms on his arm. It became a blood-red armored gauntlet with two pitch-black claw-like blades on the back of the hand. There were 3/4-inch spikes on each of the knuckles that looked like they would cause more damage coming out than going in. All in all, it looked completely vicious. Now for your punishment, I said Kenpachi as he slaughtered them. It took him only seconds to end them all. Now all of you, I want you to train for the next 3 days. After that we storm the repentant cell and rescue ichigoxichi. Dismissed, he said. Kurosaki-kun, what about me, asked Orihime. ichiHime will be coming with me, said Kenpachi smiling. But what about Chad and Uryu and Ganju-san, asked Orihime concerned. Good point, Ikaku called Kenpachi. Yes captain, asked Ikaku. When we are about to storm the repentant cell, I want you to find my other friends and bring them with us, said Kenpachi. Yes sir, I should be able to find them, replied Ikaku. They'd see you in 3 days, said Kenpachi as he picked Orihime up bridal style. Wait for me too, Chan, said Yuichiro latching onto his shoulder. Let's go, he said and shunpoed off. Chapter 3. Reactions. Hello Taicho, I have grievous news. You all recently heard of the death of Sasuke-san, but now we have another death on our hands, said the Sateicho. Wait Sateicho, shouldn't we wait for Kenpachi? Taicho asked Anohanaretsu nervously. There is no point in waiting for him because he's the one who died, he replied bluntly. The effect of his words was almost instantaneous. Every Taicho stood stock still with shock written on their faces, with the exception of Byakuya and Jashiro. What, can you please repeat that, Sateicho? I believe I had something crazy in my ear from one of my experiments. It sounded like you said that Neanderthal Zaraki was killed, said Kuritsuchi Mayuri, the Taicho of the 12th Division, while cleaning his ear with a pinky finger. The words barely left his mouth before a tremendous smack resounded all throughout Sirte. Anohana stood in front of him, the kind look that usually adorned her face was replaced with a look of pure rage. How dare you? How dare you insult the man that was my fiancé, she said, stunning all the other Taicho. You two were intending to get married, asked Yamamoto the Sateicho. The realization that her love was gone sent her to her knees, all anger fleeing her face being replaced with grief as she wept into her hands. We were intending to announce it in 2 weeks when we sent out invitations to the wedding, she said as she continued weeping. I think this is all we can do at this point, is give him a funeral to be remembered. This meeting is adjourned. We meet tomorrow for the funeral at 1100 hours. If you are late without good reason, you will be stripped of your rank and busted down to a grunt with no chance of promotion for 1000 years, said Yamamoto as he tried to console Anohana. Touching words, Sateicho, it's a shame none of the 11th Division will be there. I'm sure it would be truly spectacular, said Kajiranai as he walked out of the shadows. Who are you, and why do you say such terrible things, asked Anohana scowling at him. I am the new 4th seat of the 11th Division, caged Kajiranai. I say these things because though all of my division would love to attend such a funeral, we have other matters to attend to, he said, turning his back to them. What other matters would you have to attend to? What could be more important than your captain, asked Anohana. Becoming stronger like he would have wanted. He truly loved you, you know. Even though he was terrified, he loved you, he said, still walking away. Wait, what do you mean, asked Anohana confused. How badly do you think he wanted to let Ichigo call him Tusan, he asked. Never, he wasn't that kind of person, said Yamamoto, earning a glare from Anohana. Wrong, it killed him every day, he denied her the right to call him father. You know, alcohol in the correct amount will destroy any facade. A few other Shinigami, him and myself included, were drinking buddies. We never drank enough to go loopy, but just enough so we could let our true selves show. We always knew our limit and we stopped when we knew we hit it. That way we still remembered everything we did and everything said. Zaraki was actually kind-hearted and warm to others. He was still the strong badass you all knew, but he could show affection without fear of being judged or ridiculed. He said so many times how much he loved you that it was bordering almost on obsession. He also told us how terrified he was of showing that affection, because if an enemy ever found out they would use it against him. He never wanted you or any of your kids to be put in that kind of danger, he said after stopping with his back still turned. He continued walking away, leaving a dumbfounded Yamamoto and a blushing Anohana. Wait, who were the other Shinigami? Yelled Yamamoto. I'll never tell, we all swore an oath of secrecy. You won't even get a hint out of me, he replied, walking out of sight. But Toshiro strode slowly towards his barracks with his head downcast. His tears wouldn't come, not until he was alone. He entered his office and ordered that he was not to be disturbed for several hours. He closed the door behind him, walked over to his desk, sat down and finally broke down. He wept for the loss of one of his best friends and drinking buddies. Yes, Toshiro is one of the several mentioned. He wept so hard he never heard his Fukateicho wake up from her nap on his couch. Itsugaya Taicho, what's wrong, she said, stunned. She had never seen her Taicho cry, and to see him openly weep in front of her broke her heart. Even though she knew he would never return her affections, she still cared. He just never seemed to realize that her flirting with him was different than with others. While with others she would flirt and act hexy, she never hugged them like she did him. No other male in Sirte could claim to have their head held into her magnificent chest. And absolutely no one could claim to have been her first in bed. That's right, she was still a virgin, and damn proud of it. He was the only one she would ever even consider betting, and if he never took her then she would remain a virgin forever. Zaraki Taicho is dead, he said in a small voice as his tears returned in full force. She was at his side in an instant, hugging him. It wasn't one of her flirty hugs either, but one meant to comfort. "I'm so sorry, Taicho, I never knew he meant that much to you," she said, tightening her hug just a fraction as she felt him embrace her back. "He was one of my best friends. We showed each other our true selves and never judged the other. All of us," he said as he buried his head in her chest and let his tears flow. "What do you mean, Taicho?" she asked, holding just a little tighter than necessary, savoring the tender moment with him. He and several others were secret drinking buddies. We only drank enough to show our true selves, but no more than that. Did you really think of me as a cold, uncaring person? No, that was never really me. You see, we all had something in common with each other that let us get along. We were all afraid to show affection to the one we love," explained Toshiro, looking at Ranjiku dead in the eye. "I understand, Taicho, so who is the lucky girl?" she asked, her heart shattering at knowing she was too late. She knew it was probably Hinamori, and she knew it would always be her. But that didn't make it any easier on her heart. "I'm looking at her right now. Oh, and by the way, Ran-chan, from now on you can call me Tashi-kun all you want," he replied, kissing her right on the lips, making her eyes go wide, then get heavy. She leaned in to deepen the kiss as tears of joy and sorrow streamed down her face. Joy that the man she loved her back. Sorrowful that it took one of his best friends dying for him to admit it. "You don't know how long I've wanted to hear you say that." "How long have you loved me, if I may ask?" she said, wiping her tears away on her sleeve. "About since the time I joined the Gate 13, he said with a smirk. This stunned her even more. "That was almost 200 years ago," she said. "Yes, it was, and such a long 200 years they were, without you to ease the pain away," he said, resting his forehead against hers. "I love you with all that I am," she said, another tear running down her face. "And you," he replied, wiping the tear away before they both began crying again, this time for the loss of a friend. One whose death made all this possible for them. It was then that they decided to always cherish the time they had together and never take their love for granted. With Hinataro, "I wonder how everyone else is doing," said Hinataro to himself. He was in a holding cell in the 4th Division barracks. "If you want to know that, then you should have never helped the enemy," said Aizen Katetsu from outside the cell. "Hello, Fukatecho, how are you today?" said Hinataro politely. "Terribly, and it's all your fault," she yelled at him. But what did I do? I've been trapped here since yesterday. How could I have done something today?" he asked, confused. "It's because you helped those Ryoka. One of them killed Zaraki Taicho, who I shall inform you was Unohana Taicho's fiancé. If you hadn't healed them, then he never would have died and Unohana Taicho wouldn't be a sobbing wreck. It's all your fault," she said, breaking down to tears by the end. Hinataro, though, had both seen and heard enough. Standing up, he walked to the wooden bars, pulled back his fist and smashed a good portion of them away. He strode through the bars and picked Aizen up as if she weighed nothing and held her close. "I'm sorry it had to happen to him. He was a good friend of mine and a great drinking buddy. Yes, even Hinataro.I'll miss him, but I don't feel bad for healing Kurosaki-san. Though he may have killed Zaraki Taicho, at least he gave him the death he always craved. He would be glad to die at the blade of a stronger warrior than himself than to waste away over the centuries and slowly die of old age. I won't deny that he would have wanted to live, but he still died like he always wanted to," said Hinataro with tears streaming down his face. Aizen was dumbfounded. Not only did he break out, but he picked her up and tried to comfort her as if he did it every day. How are you able to do this?" she asked in astonishment. "Simple, I always could have done it. I'm actually much stronger than many would think. When our little drinking troupe got together, we always got drunk enough to break our facade that we always put up. We were all united by our fear of showing affection to others. We all coped with this fear in different ways. Zaraki Taicho acted like a heartless psychopath, I acted like a pathetic wimp, so no one would want to be near me. One of us acted cold and heartless to everybody, another just avoided people entirely, and another I still don't know how, but he drove people off, but I would assume it was the silence, I kill you aura he always had around him. It worked until we all fell in love. Zaraki Taicho with Unohana Taicho, one with Matsumoto Fukatecho, one with your sister Kian, one with Nanao Fukatecho, and one with you," said Hinataro, surprising her with the knowledge. "So who was the one who fell in love with me?" she asked, knowing the odds were stacked against her. She had always harbored secret feelings towards a certain Shinigami that was holding her right then. "It was me," he said, looking away, blushing. Before he had time to blink, she pulled his face to her and kissed him with a raw passion that if it were pure heat, it would have scorched him. "I love you too, I don't know from when and I don't care. Right now I need comfort just as much as Unohana Taicho does. Please just hold me," she said, clinging to his chest like a magnet. "As you wish," he replied. But Seijin Kamamura noticed the pattern yet. Seijin Kamamura, Taicho of the 7th Division, was depressed. He had lost one of his best friends, all because of some stupid Ryoka. No, that wasn't fair to them, they were just trying to protect their friend. It was all because the Central 46 decided to forcibly have her removed from the world of the living. Still, he couldn't help but harbor a little anger at the Ryoka. A small portion of the blame still rested with them. Sai life seemed so much bleaker without him. He was the one who brought us together, and if it weren't for him, I would probably be some justice-obsessed nutjob like Kanem is. I also never would have found my heart, or I guess I should say the one who holds it, said Kamamura to himself, not realizing that someone was standing behind him. So Kamamura Taicho, who is the lucky girl, asked Ice Nanao the Fukatecho for the 8th division. What do you mean? I didn't say anything, he responded, backing up slowly, sweating slightly under his helmet. Oh come now Kamamura Taicho, you have nothing to be nervous about. If you tell me I swear that I will never breathe a word, she said, fixing her glasses and adjusting her book. Well oh hell. I can't say no to you, never to you. The woman I fell in love with, as he began. Kamen through, yelled a voice behind him. A figure jumped over his head, but accidentally kicking his helmet with enough force to crack it. Vajir and I, get your ass back here so I can kick it, he yelled as the crack widened from his excess of Ryatsu release. It kept widening until, crack, it split open. He turned back to Nanao, not noticing that his helmet was split in two, revealing his face. It was that of a fox's, complete with furry ears. Before he could open his mouth to continue his conversation with Nanao, she did something completely unexpected. Aoi, she yelled, jumping onto his shoulders and petting his head. As she slowly stroked his fur, she was paying careful attention to his fox ears. Nanao WW, what are you doing? He stuttered, resisting the urge to purr at the work of her delicate hands. He was fighting a losing battle. I simply love foxes. I just think they are so kawaii and sweet. Especially with their ears, so big in comparison to a cat's and 10 times more sensitive. Whenever I see a fox I just have to cuddle it and adore it and lavish it with attention, she said, never once stopping her ministrations. Okay, now about your question, he said. She stopped dead at hearing the horrified look on her face. Taicho, I'm so sorry, I didn't think. I should have restrained myself. You probably only want the person you were talking about to do that. I feel so ashamed, she said, tears welling in her eyes. It broke his heart almost as much as learning that Zaraki died. Nanao, I don't mind if you do that to my ears. In fact, you're the only one I would ever allow to do that to me, he said, a sly fox-like smirk residing on his face. But what about the woman you love, she said, confused. She is the only one I would allow, he said, his smirk widening. But if I'm the only one allowed, then that means, she said, trailing off. I see you figured it out. I always knew you were a smart one, he said, opening up his arms. She leapt into them, crying tears of happiness. I can't believe it. Here I thought I would die a lonely woman, and it turns out the man I loved loves me back. It's like some divine act of kami, she said. Author whistles while slowly walking away. There the bastard is, yelled Zaraki, followed by a number of people. How dare you make us look like chicken shit pansies, I'll kill you for that, he yelled, drawing his zanpakuto and chasing the author around Sarate, with a group of angry characters following him. It does seem like that, but kami or not, that's how I feel, replied Kamamura happily. I'm glad, but what should we do now, she asked. Dinner and a show, he asked. Definitely, she replied happily. With Kajira and I, let's see, tell Anohana Taicho Zaraki Taicho's true feelings. Check, warn the Sateicho about possible new relationship sometime soon in the future. Check, put Aizen into an almost catatonic state for Hinataro to comfort. Check, break Kamamura's mask for Nanao to fondle his foxy features. Check, deliver a gargantuan barrel of candy to Ichigo. Double check, pick up Kenpachi Taicho's special order for Orihime-sama. Check, deliver Kenpachi Taicho's special order. Check, and lastly tell Kiin my true feelings. Not check, damn, this is going to be the hardest part of my checklist. Oh well, as they say, no guts no glory. Still, I get the feeling I'm going to get my ass handed to me for some reason or another, said Kajiranai to himself as he leapt towards the 13th Division barracks. He had no idea what to say, simply because he had never said the words before. There was not a single instance in either life or death that he said I love you to anything. Not even his parents or pets. Neither did he show affection to anything. It was this that enabled him to remember his life from the living world so well. Back then he tried to live life without any bonds, believing that they would only bring pain. He was right and wrong at the same time. While the bonds brought pain, they also brought relief to that pain. To live without bonds is to never truly live. His hatred for bonds led him to live alone away from the world, where no one would find him. That was until a pair of thrill seekers stumbled upon his little shack in an isolated part of the world. They had gotten lost while mountain climbing, and the older one of them had been injured. She had a broken leg and several broken ribs. All he wanted to do was turn them away and let them suffer the consequences of their actions. But something stopped him, perhaps it was the spark in the younger sibling's eye or the way she refused to let her sister go. He didn't know, but he did know that he couldn't turn them down. Flashback, you were stupid for coming here in the first place, but since you won't be able to leave for at least a month. You might as well make yourself comfortable, he said, turning away from them. Thank you, you are truly a blessing, said the younger sibling as she set her sister on the couch. I'm no blessing. The second your sister can walk you're out the door, and may you never darken my doorstep again, he replied, not turning to face them. How can you be so kind yet so cruel? Haven't you ever done something just to be kind, she asked, tears forming in her eyes. No, I haven't. I see no point to. All it would do is create bonds, something I don't need, he responded, turning to her with a blank look on his face. But haven't you ever loved anything, and how can you live without bonds, isn't it too painful, she asked, her tears flowing down her face. No, I haven't, and whether or not you make bonds you are pained. At least without bonds the pain is solely your own. Without bonds you never have to feel the pain of losing a friend or family member. It will forever mean life alone, but the reduction of pain is worth it, he said, his face never wavering. But you never truly live. All you have is an empty life devoid of anything worthwhile, she said, wiping her tears away. She then turned away to her sister and began trying to splint her injuries properly. She was failing miserably, causing more pain than she was relieving. Oh, for pity's sake, move over and let me do it, he said, pushing her out of the way. He slowly began inspecting her leg, noting the swelling around her shin and ankle. Her leg is broken in two places, the ankle and the tibia. Luckily it doesn't need to be set, so we can get right to the splint. You will not leave this couch, and you will not move that leg. I will tie it down if I have to, okay, he said, directing the last part to her. Okay, she replied in a pained voice. Now remove your shirt so I can inspect the damage to your ribs, he said bluntly. Pervert, she yelled, slapping him so hard she hurt her own hand. I'm not a pervert, and I won't do anything to hurt you. Trust me and you'll be healed in less than a month, he said. She reluctantly did, blushing like a tomato. He inspected her ribs without even glancing at her bare breasts. He wasn't concerned with them in the least, just healing her up so he can get them out of his house. After splinting her up as well as he could, he turned away and started for the door. Since we are going to be seeing each other for some time, I'll need to know what to call you. I have no name, so just call me Nanashi, he said, glancing back at them from the door. My sister's name is Aizen, and I'm Kian, said Kian simply before she turned to her sister. Alright, I'll be back in a half hour with food, don't let her move and don't leave this room. After we eat, when I get back I'll show you to your room, he said, closing the door behind him. Flashback end. Sigh, man, am I glad to be the only one to remember that. I never thought I would have fallen in love with her in that short month. Then again, she did show me the true power of bonds. Oh well, the past is behind me, nothing I can do about it now, he said to himself. Well, if it isn't the nameless wonder here to see what a true man is made of. So how does it feel to know that you are a nameless, seatless, worthless excuse of a Shinigami, asked Sentaro, one of the two joint third seats of the 13th Division. Buck off, rope head, for your information I now have both a name and a seat. By the way, I earned my seat with blood, sweat and tears, unlike you, Mr. All Grades No Talent, said Kajiranai. Not even glancing at him. Don't you just walk away from me. You think that just because you got a low seat you outrank me. I'm a third seat and way more powerful than you, he said, drawing his zanpakuto. Is that a challenge, asked Kajiranai with a raised brow. Hey, now isn't the time for pointless squabbles. We need to get ready for war with the Ryoka, said Kian, placating. Shut it, Kian, this doesn't concern you. This is between me and the limp-picked little bitch here, said Sentaro angrily. Okay, since you seem so bent on dying today, I'll accommodate you. I came here for peaceful reasons, but I'm always up for a good scrap, said Kajiranai, drawing his zanpakuto. The day 11th Division does anything peacefully is the day hollows stop attacking humans, said Sentaro angrily. Believe what you want. How about a little bet though? If I win you give up your seat and get busted down to grunt with no chance for promotion for the rest of your career. Deal or no deal, asked Kajiranai. What if I win, asked Sentaro curiously. I'll run myself through with every zanpakuto of the 11th Division, said Kajiranai smirking. Deal, shouted Sentaro smirking back. The terms are an agnakai, winner is the last one standing, said Kajiranai, his smirk turning into a shit-eating grin. Sentaro paled at that. He had seen what an agnakai could do to a man. If he even survived this he would never be able to rise in rank even without the stipulation. What are the limitations, he asked, sweating a little bit. You choose your own limits, replied Kajiranai. Fine, I'm at half power, said Sentaro. And to even the playing field I'll go to 1/10 my full power, replied Kajiranai. You just signed your own death warrant, yelled Sentaro, charging in with his zanpakuto poised to cut Kajiranai in half. Faster than he could see, Kajiranai disappeared and reappeared behind him, sheathing his zanpakuto. The second the blade was fully sheathed, hundreds of cuts appeared on Sentaro. All of them were light and none of them would prove fatal. But they were enough to make him pass out from the pain. I win, said Kajiranai as Sentaro fell on his face. Ow, I didn't even see you move, said Kian fearfully. Training, a whole shitload of training. Working countless hours, sweating until blood came out instead of water. Enduring enough pain that I literally cried blood and then some, said Kajiranai. Why go that far? I just don't see you having a reason to work that hard, she said. I did it so I could always protect the woman I love. I never told her, but that's what I'm here for today, he responded. Noticing the dejected look in her eyes, he didn't need to ask how he felt about him. It also seems as if she may love me back, he said with a smirk. So who is the lucky lady, she asked, wishing she had someone like him to love and protect her. You, he said, capturing her lips in a soul-searing kiss. Ironic, isn't it? A soul-searing kiss and their souls. Ha ha dot. Lucky me, she said, dazed after the kiss. Yes, lucky you, but also lucky me, he said, holding her close, resting his forehead on hers. But Kenpachi had been working ever since he killed all the people who attempted to rape Orihime. Yoroichi's method was strange to say the least. She wanted him to stab an unusual-looking mannequin to force his zanpakuto into a physical form. Kenpachi didn't like the sound of that, so he forwented. Instead, he asked them for assistance, which they gladly gave. They were just happy to be spoken to. In fact, he even had them out on his downtime to chat so he could learn more about them. It stunned Yoroichi how easily he interacted with them. Normally the spirits conflicted with their wielder to the point that they almost hated each other. Kenpachi, on the other hand, was chatting with both of them as if they were best friends. At this rate he may learn Bankai faster than I thought. He truly is a genius when it comes to being a Shinigami. He learned his original Shikai in a few days and then the Shikai of a totally foreign zanpakuto in 15 minutes. I take it back, he takes the term genius to a whole new level, thought Yoroichi to herself as she watched Kenpachi finish for the day. Kenpachi, that's enough for today, you need some time to yourself and your family, said Zangetsu. I guess you're right, and it is a special occasion tonight, said Kenpachi, smiling lightly. Oh, and what makes tonight so special, asked Kanshiki with a raised brow. I'm going to ask Orihime to marry me. I know we're young, but she deserves it and I love her. Besides, Yuichiro needs a mother and Orihime will be perfect, said Kenpachi, shocking all who were present. They had expected a multitude of things, but this was the last thing on their minds. Well, congratulations are in order, Kenpachi, we both wish you a long and happy marriage. Also never forget, even when you can't see us, we are always in your heart. That bond will help you transcend your power beyond the realms of belief, said Zangetsu before disappearing, leaving Kenpachi with a thoughtful look on his face. I'll remember that, old man, thank you. Both of you, I have learned more from both of you than I would have trying it alone, said Kenpachi. So how do you think you're progressing, asked Yoroichi after a minute. In learning Bankai, absolutely nothing. But in Zanjutsu I'm learning from two perfect teachers. Kanshiki is even teaching me how to control my Ryatsu and spiritual pressure to the level of a captain. Zangetsu is teaching me strategy and patience, so all in all I'd say I made pretty good progress. I think at this rate with the bonds we're forming, Bankai may not even be needed, said Kenpachi, making Yoroichi's eye twitch. He doesn't even know how close he is to reaching Bankai. All this in one day of training, genius doesn't even describe it. If he doesn't achieve Bankai by tomorrow I'll be surprised, she thought as he left to go clean up. After all, he wanted to look and smell nice for when he proposed to his beloved. With Orihime, I wonder what Kenpachi-kun has planned tonight. He said it was something special. Oh well, I guess I'll just have to wait and see, said Orihime to herself as she walked down the corridor. She stopped when she heard sobbing. Sob. She followed the sound until she came upon a closed door. Opening it carefully so as not to startle the person inside, she was shocked to find Yuichiro crying her eyes out all alone. She listened in to hopefully learn of the problem. Sob, why did you have to die, Ken-chan? Sob, it's not fair, I'm happy with the new Ken-chan, but I still miss the old. Sob, both were my 2-chan, but one actually lets me call him that. Sob, 2-chan also found me a Ka-chan, but Ken-chan did as well. Sob, I can't let 2-chan or Ka-chan see me like this though. Sob, 2-chan is proud of me, but I can't let him think I'm weak. Sob, and I don't want Ka-chan to be disgusted and leave. Sob, I have to be strong, she said, fighting to regain control of her emotions. Orihime, however, had seen enough. She opened the door fully and engulfed Yuichiro in the most loving, comforting hug she could manage. Ichiro-chan, if you are sad let us know. If you want to cry then cry. We will never think any less of you. We may not be related by blood, but Kenpachi-kun and I love you like you were our daughter by birth. We will never leave you, you don't have to mask your sorrow from us, said Orihime, rocking Yuichiro back and forth while slowly stroking her hair comfortingly. Usen, if you really mean it, Ka-chan, asked Yuichiro, wiping her eyes. Yes, I do, and to prove it to you, we're going to see Kenpachi-kun right now, she said, continuing to where she was supposed to meet Kenpachi. No please Ka-chan, 2-chan will think I'm weak. I don't want that, said Yuichiro, struggling slightly in Orihime's arms. However, because she was exhausted from crying so much and didn't prove too troublesome to Orihime. With Kenpachi had everything prepared for a perfect evening. A nice little table for two set with a nice white tablecloth. A bottle of non-alcoholic champagne setting in an ice bucket. He even convinced Yoroichi to change the setting of the sky to nighttime with stars overhead. To finish off the ensemble, 2 candles scented like Orihime's favorite flowers. He even went to the trouble of cooking the dinner for that night, roast beef in a creamy sauce with homemade mashed potato sand salad. He was just sitting down to wait for her when Kenpachi-kun, we need to have a serious talk. Yuichiro was crying earlier but was too afraid to come to us. She seems to think we'll leave if she seems weak, said Orihime showing him the trembling bunch of pink hair. I don't know why she would think that, but I do know two things. One, I'll never leave her, and two, you'll never leave her, said Kenpachi, enveloping them both in a hug. See Yuichiro-chan, Kenpachi-kun isn't going to leave if you cry, and neither am I, said Orihime comfortingly. Their words drove her over the edge. She broke down sobbing into Orihime's chest while clutching them both for dear life. Her exhaustion soon caught up with her and she fell asleep in Orihime's arms. Let's skip dinner for tonight, she needs us more, said Kenpachi as he looked lovingly at his daughter and hopefully future wife. Yeah. By the way, Kenpachi-kun, what did you want to talk about tonight, she asked while they walked. Well, I was going to ask you after a romantic dinner, but if you really want to know. Gets down on one knee pulling out a box. Inoue Orihime, I have loved you ever since middle school and I have thought long and hard about this. I realize that there is not another woman in this universe I would rather spend the rest of my life with. So I ask you here and now, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife and the mother of my children? Will you marry me, he asked, opening the box to reveal a beautifully crafted ring. It was made of white gold with a blue diamond the size of her pinky nail set in the center. Engraved on the inside was ichiHime forever. She just stared speechless at the work of art being presented to her. If she hadn't been carrying Yuichiro, she would have been jumping around for joy. Yes, of course, I'll marry you, was heard all around Sirte. Miraculously, Yuichiro was still asleep and Kenpachi was still able to hear. He didn't fault her for her yell though as he slipped the ring on her left hand. But this ring, we are bound through eternity. I love you so much, ichiHime, said Kenpachi as he gathered her up in a gentle hug. And I you, my Higasha, she replied with his new nickname. Protector, I like it, he said, pulling her closer. They forewent dinner like they said and just prepared for bed. They all lay down together, Kenpachi on one side, Orihime on the other, and Yuichiro nestled between the two. For the first time they slept together like a family. They never had such a peaceful night's sleep until then. Chapter 4. The battle begins. Ichigo woke up with two pleasant weights on his chest. He groggily opened his eyes and looked down only to smile as the events from last night flooded his mind. Orihime said yes to marrying him, and Yuichiro finally got to act her age with both a mother and father to comfort her. Both of them must have shifted during the night because Yuichiro was now on his left side clinging to his arm with her head on his shoulder. Orihime had her head on his chest with her arms surrounding his torso. Both had a content look on their faces that he had no desire to change. So he just lay there smiling and wrapping his arms around his girls. Boy, Kenpachi, get your ass up and get training, yelled Yoroichi, waking both Orihime and Yuichiro with a start. What time is it, asked Orihime as she rubbed the sleep from her eyes and yawned cutely. It's just after 7 in the morning, responded Yoroichi, glaring at Ichigo, who was glaring right back. You could have found a better way to wake them, he said irritably. Yeah, well, you needed to get your ass in gear so you can learn Bankai, said Yoroichi. We had a rather draining night last night, so I wanted to let them sleep a little bit. Kami knows we all need a little more sleep since coming here, said Ichigo. Draining night, huh? Geez, Kenpachi, I never took you for a cradle robber, and with your own daughter no less, said Yoroichi, smirking. All it got her was the blunt side of Zangetsu hitting her head and the flat of Kanshiki hitting her stomach. Damn pervert, that's not what I meant, and you know it, he said with a crimson blush coating his cheeks. Du-chan, what's a cradle robber? Asked Yuichiro curiously. I'll tell you when you're older, much older, said Ichigo, avoiding the question. Okay, I'm going to look for Boldy-chan and Swan-chan to play, she said happily as she dashed away. Just make sure not to push them too hard, we still need them to fight with us tomorrow, yelled Ichigo, who couldn't help but grin at his daughter's enthusiasm. He also couldn't help but feel pity for Ikaku and Yumichika. He knew what his daughter meant by play if her fight with the unnamed captain was any indication. Those two were in for hell when she got to them. So Kenpachi-kun, what did you have planned for today with your zanpakuto? Asked Orihime curiously. Today I was just planning on learning as much as I could about them. I neglected Zangetsu far too much after I learned his name and I want to make it up to him. I also want to make sure I don't make the same mistake with Kanshiki. Both of them mean too much to me to make that mistake again, said Ichigo as he fixed his shahakushu. Just as he finished his sentence, two figures appeared behind him. Do you really mean that, Kenpachi? Asked Zangetsu, looking straight into his eyes. I do, both of you are as important to me as any of my nakama. I would gladly give my life to assist you, if only for you to ask it, he said, his resolve not wavering in the least. He may actually be worthy, thought both Kanshiki and Zangetsu at the same time. Tell us where we reside and we may actually be inclined to believe you, said Kanshiki with a slightly condescending tone. She was still bitter and a little skeptical from her treatment with Zaraki. You are both a part of me, residing within the depths of my heart. As such, your pain is my pain. Your fight is my fight. Your blood is my blood, said Ichigo with such certainty that all present sans Orihime took a step back in shock. Suddenly the entire cave echoed with laughter. The laughter came from three sources, Zangetsu, Kanshiki, and Yoroichi. It wasn't a mocking laughter, but a joyous laughter that made you want to join in. Oh, I needed that laugh. I can't believe that after all these millennia I have finally found a master with the ability to bring out my full potential. My first master, and he already understands the truth of what a zanpakuto really is, said Zangetsu joyously with a smile on his face for the first time since he has ever been seen. It really is unbelievable, Zan-kun. He is able to progress so quickly that it puts even the most brilliant genius in Sarate to shame. I never even thought it would be possible after I saw how Zaraki acted. I guess there is truth to the saying never judge a book by its cover, said Kanshiki as she smiled happily. What do you mean, asked Ichigo, scratching his head curiously. Simply put, you have discovered the means of achieving Bankai. You forged a bond with both your zanpakuto of such a magnitude that it would normally take Shinigami decades to achieve it. Congratulations, Kenpachi, you have done the impossible again, said Zangetsu happily. Wow. Man, you guys really know how to make a guy feel unworthy. I still feel like shit for neglecting you for so long, and yet you see fit to give me your ultimate ability. You truly honor me with this gift, said Ichigo as he knelt to the ground with his head bowed towards the two zanpakuto. Kenpachi, though you may feel unworthy, believe us, you are. Much more so than that of others, some of which don't even deserve to know the name of their zanpakuto, said Kanshiki, thinking of her old master. Thank you again, said Ichigo, who just received a nod before they both disappeared. Then in an instant he found himself on his back with a laughing Orihime clinging to his chest. You did it, Kenpachi-kun. You really did it, she said, planting a chaste kiss on his lips. Their first kiss. The second her lips touched his, it felt as if an electric shock jolted through their systems. What was all Ichigo could say. Yeah, said Orihime. They just looked at each other for a second before they entered into a fierce make-out session, reveling in the feel of each other's lips as their bodies pressed together, creating a pleasant friction. I think this was the best decision I have ever made, said Ichigo as he rested his forehead against Orihime's. She just giggled in response. But Ichigo sped through Sarate with amazing speed. She reached the 11th Division barracks in roughly 5 minutes. She opened the door with a huge grin on her face. Hey Boldy-chan, Swan-chan, she called through the hallway. You called Fukatecho, they both chorused at the same time. Boldy-chan, did you find Two-chan's friend, she asked. Yeah, they're over this way, said Ikaku, motioning for her to follow. And what did you need me for, Fukatecho asked Yumichika. Did you finish Ka-chan's new cloths? Two-chan's are too big for her, she replied. Yes, I did finish them, just last night. I was planning on trying to find the Taicho so I could deliver them, but I couldn't find him, said Yumichika with a shrug of his shoulders. Here we are, Fukatecho, these are the Taicho's friends, said Ikaku as he opened the door. Yuichiro dashed in and looked at all of them happily. It's the crazy captain's kid, yelled Ganju in fright. Oh hello Gorilla-chan, are your cuts healing up from Byaku-chan, she asked, surprising them with her question. Yes they are, but why does that matter, he asked curiously. Fu-chan says tomorrow we storm the Repentant Cell and rescue Chibi-chan. He wants all of his friends to be in fighting condition, she said happily. Why is your father helping us? Isn't he a Shinigami like you, asked Sato with a raised brow. Yes silly, but he came with you. You are here to help Chibi-chan, right, she asked, her smile never wavering. Chibi-chan? Who are you talking about? And who is your father, asked Uryu. Simple Pencil-chan, his name is Kenpachi Ichigokurosaki, she said as their jaws dropped to the floor. And who is Chibi-chan, asked Sato. It's Byaku-chan's little sister, Mountain-chan, she said, hopping up and down. That doesn't help, said Uryu, irritated. I think she means Rukia, supplied Sato. Right, Mountain-chan, she cheered happily. Okay, so why are we here, asked Ganju. So Two-chan can come pick you up tomorrow, she said. So what do we do now, asked Sato. You rest while I go play with Boldy-chan and Swan-chan, she replied, making both Yumichika and Ikaku sweat. They knew what she meant by play. Yumichika, I think you and I are dead meat, whispered Ikaku to his Metro-Hexwell friend. Agreed, shall we try to escape beautifully, he replied. Escape yes, beautifully no, said Ikaku, inching away from Yuichiro. Let's go, she yelled, grabbing both of them by their collars and running off. Why do I feel as if I should pity them, asked Uryu. Because her definition of play means to beat the crap out of, supplied Ganju, suppressing a snigger at the memory of the white-haired captain after Yuichiro finished playing with him. The next day, Ichigo woke up early to prepare for the battle ahead of him. He knew that even with all the training from Zangetsu and Kanshiki, he would be hard-pressed to win. But then he smirked, remembering he wouldn't be alone. He would have his friends and his new squad. With their help he would dominate the battlefield. Hell, if he could get Yoroichi to help, it would be a cinch. He looked over to his sleeping fiancée with a wide grin on his face. So long as she was safe he could take on the world. He gently leaned over and placed a soft kiss on her lips. She moaned in content as she rolled over and opened her eyes to the smiling face of Ichigo. Good morning, Kenpachi-kun, she said, smiling. Morning Hime, we need to get going soon if we want to get Rukia out of here, he said, handing her some of the cloths that Ichiro had brought back yesterday. Thanks Kenpachi-kun, you go and do what you have to. I'll catch up later with Ichiro-chan, she said smiling happily. Are you sure Hime, he asked with worry. Though I'll be fine, she said again. Alright, I'll see you soon, he said, leaving her with another kiss. That's some Kyoku hell. Rukia stood there, her head downcast, tears threatening to fall down her cheeks. Her resolve was broken so easily by Ichimaru Taicho, she didn't even try to build it back up. She just resigned her fate and hoped her final request was honored. Ichiki Rukia, do you have any final words before your sentence is carried out, asked Yamamoto Sateicho. Yes, I have 2 final requests, she replied, looking him straight in the eye. What are they, he asked. I request that after my execution the Ryoka be allowed to go home as they are, and also that the Ryoka known as Kenpachi ichigokurosaki be allowed to keep his Shinigami abilities so as to aid Sarate in times of need, she said with conviction. Genryusai frowned, but still looked her in the eye. Though I cannot say I like your requests, they will be honored, just as have every other Shinigami, said Genryusai. Thank you, she said with relief. Her head bowed with relief as they began the ritual for her execution. Genryusai used Kidm to control 3 blocks meant to raise her up to the top of the scaffolding. They began the chant to release the Sankyoku. It raised itself up and aimed straight for her heart, turning into a flaming phoenix as it did. Rukia closed her eyes waiting for the final blow to land. Xing Clang, for those of you confused, it was a sword drawing and blocking an attack. Sorry, I suck at thinking of sound effects. Rukia opened her eyes to see a sight that she had never dreamed possible. Ichigo was floating in front of her, a hockey smirk on his face as he blocked the Sankyoku. Boy, didn't think you would give up that easily, Chibi, he said arrogantly. All the present Taichos and Fukateichos along with every other Shinigami there had their jaws dropped. A single Shinigami was blocking the Sankyoku as if it were nothing. You moron, you couldn't have just left and been happy. Now you will be killed, Bakurukia yelled at him. So that's the thanks I get, he replied as the Sankyoku pulled back for another strike. Hold on, this thing is pissing me off, he said while throwing Zangetsu into the air. He spun around to face the attack head-on and hawked back his fist. Everybody started writing him off as dead when he did what was thought to be impossible. As the Sankyoku sped forward again, he lashed out with his fist and shattered it into a million pieces as he caught the falling Zangetsu with his other hand. Everybody's jaws were literally hitting the floor. A single kid who shouldn't even have Shinigami powers had just shattered the single most powerful artifact in all of Sarate with his bare hands. That's not possible, the Sankyoku has the power of 1,000,000 zanpakuto, said Genryusai in disbelief. However, Ichigo heard him and turned to look at him as if he were crazy. You have got to be shitting me, old man. That thing barely had the power of 50 zanpakuto. I think you were told a bunch of bullshit, he replied, making Genryusai blush in anger. Destroy him were the only words out of his mouth. Everyone moved to follow his orders only to stop at the sounds of pain. When they turned they were shocked to see that 11th Division was beating back their respective squads. Leading the way was Ikaku, Yumichika, and Renji. Yes, the redhead from the 6th Division was fighting right alongside his old comrades. Oi Renji, it's about time you showed your ugly face up, yelled Ichigo with a joking grin. Oh, shut up, bastard, and get your ass out of here with Rukia, he yelled back. Now you know what, I think I'll leave the running to you, he said as he broke the scaffold and picked up Rukia with one hand. He drew back like he was going to throw a baseball. Boy Ichigo, you're not going to, she started. Hachi yelled as he threw her with all his might, turning her into a living screaming missile. Bakemono Ichigo, she yelled after Renji caught her. You baka, what do you think would have happened if I hadn't caught her, yelled Renji in a rage. Simple than Chad would have, he said, pointing behind Renji to where his friend stood. I'm glad to see you're alright, Kenpachi-kun, yelled Orihime, waving happily. Eyes, get her away from here. Our mission was to keep her safe, now you do that while I give you time, he yelled back to them, a smug grin on his face. They turned tail and began running, all except for Orihime and Jichiro. She had a set look on her face that said clearly, I'm going to help you fight. After them yelled Genryusai, blood vessels appearing all over his face. 3 Fukateichos followed the orders. They were from 1st Division, 2nd Division, and 4th Division. Ichigo shunpoed in their path before they could make it more than 10 feet, the look on his face said take another step and die. Ugate Gonrimari yelled the 1st Division Fukateicho. Utsubu Sujetsuburi yelled the 2nd Division Fukateicho in a rage. Ashur Itagumo said Aizen in a controlled manner. Ichigo just drew his zanpakuto and stuck them in the ground. He then shunpoed in front of Marichio and punched right through his flail-like zanpakuto man right into his stomach, making him cough blood. Then in the blink of an eye he was in front of Shimjurm and with a single open palm uppercut knocked him 7 feet in the air. Before she could react he was in front of Aizen, but instead of a hawked fist, he just extended his hand and flicked her in the forehead, knocking her back 5 feet. What the hell? Are you trying to imply that I'm not worthy of fighting you with that flick, she asked in a rage while rubbing her head. No, but Hinata would try to skin me alive if I hurt his ladylove, said Ichigo before he appeared back by his zanpakuto. He quickly grabbed them and blocked two blades coming right at him, the owners being Kichiki by Akuya and Soifin. Before either of them could speak he jerked his head to the side, opened his mouth and caught another blade with his teeth. Everybody was astounded once again by either his skill or pure luck, but what really had their jaws on the ground was who was attacking him. It was Unohana. She had a murderous look on her face and tears streaming down her face. You killed him, you killed my Kenpachi-kun. For that I will kill you, she said. She drew her sword back to strike from an angle that not even he could defend while being occupied by two others. What everyone forgot though was not even 15 feet behind Ichigo was Orihime. She heard everything Unohana said and it pissed her off. Nobody threatened her Kenpachi in front of her and got away with it. Without thinking of any possible repercussion she called on her Shun Rika. Tsubaki, she called without hesitation. What do you want, girl, answered the belligerent flower. Orihime just grabbed him and held him close to her face. We have a battle to fight and you are going to help me do it, or so help me, I will make you regret it, she said. To her surprise, instead of getting mad he just started laughing uncontrollably. Finally you grow a backbone. Alright Orihime, use me as you would any sword, I'm yours to command, he said, and before her very eyes he became just that, a sword. It was a Chinese-style double-edged sword with a golden tassel on the pommel. Orihime just smirked and rushed into action. Back with Ichigo and his approaching demise, Unohana's blade rushes towards him and he knew he was going to take a hit. Well, I'm bucked, he thought. But just as Unohana was about to land a strike, a sword appeared between them and blocked her. Both turned in surprise to see Orihime wielding the very sword that was keeping Ichigo from becoming a leather rug. Keep your filthy hands off my man, she yelled in a rage that Ichigo had never seen before. With those words she engaged Unohana and was holding her own. I guess Kajira and I was right, when you mess with another woman's man you are in for a world of hurt, regardless of training or power difference, thought Ichigo with a shiver. Why are you shivering, boy? Have you finally realized you are going to die today, asked Soifin in a smug voice. Nope, just remembering the third reason I know to never intentionally piss of a woman, he responded, turning back to her and Byakuya. And what are the first two, asked said emo king with a raised brow. 1. I have too much respect for women to try and piss them off, and 2. Why would I try to piss them off when most of the time they are so kind to me, he replied. Okay, enough chit chat, let's just finish this, said Soifin with a slight blush. Oh, how I wish I could have a man like him. Oh well, the redhead already has claim over him, she thought to herself. Agreed, said Ichigo with his unknown to him lady killer smile. This will be harder than I thought, she thought to herself as her blush became more prominent. Omic. WTF. Disclaimer. I own none of the gags used in the following omic. This omic will begin near the end of the chapter. Ichigo caught Unohana's zanpakuto in his mouth while still holding off Byakuya and Soifin. Geniusai had had enough though. Oh, for buck's sake, who is writing this shit, he yelled, raising his hands in exasperation. Old man, I wouldn't suggest pissing off the author, there's no telling what he might do in retaliation, said Shinsui glancing around fearfully. As if some puny author can stand up to the might of me and Raijin Jaka, said Geniusai arrogantly. Just as those words left his mouth, a clap of thunder sounded and the heavens parted as the author comes down in a beam of light. So you think you can tangle with me, Thymysticles, the all-might author of this fic, said the author. Yes, now take back some of the things you said and make us start winning, said Geniusai angrily. No, replied Thymysticles. Why the hell not, he asked. Because I don't like you. You are an ass in the anime and manga saying such things about Orihime, said Thymysticles. You're going to bitch to us about things that haven't even happened in this reality yet, yelled Geniusai. Pretty much, Thymysticles replied smugly. That's it, Banch Miss I Cajun Tenace Raijin Jaka, yelled Geniusai as he drew his zanpakuto, only for it to fizzle out. Did I forget to mention a few assurances that you won't be a problem to beat? Now, as my first form of revenge for Orihime for the future, pulls out a laptop and begins typing. Before they could even ask what was happening, Geniusai was launched into the scaffold and started ricocheting off of everything in sight like a pinball. Come to a stop where he began, bruises covering the majority of his body. Is that all you got, he yelled. Sure, it would end right there. Not even by a long shot. Starts typing again. All the muscle mass that Geniusai once had left him until he was nothing more than a withered husk like his age would imply. Before he could ask if Thymysticles was done, his pants dropped, revealing his highly embarrassing boxers that had pictures of Grimjo and said Grimjo fanboy right on the ass. He blushed as Grimjo appeared beside him and started laughing his ass off. And the worst is yet to come, said Thymysticles as he cracked his knuckles and started typing again. Before Geniusai could begin to fret, he felt something wrong with his backside. His face started getting redder and redder until a ripping was heard. A hole had appeared right in the center of his boxers and out crawled a tiny monkey. Did he just make that monkey come out his ass, asked Ikaku to Renji. I believe he did, said Renji as said monkey screeched and started mauling his face in. I have nothing against Renji, I just thought that would be funny as hell. "Alright, that's enough anal dwelling butt monkey, it's time for you to go home," said Thymysticles, making Genusai pale. He started running as fast as he could, but the monkey was faster. Before he had taken more than 5 steps, the monkey had leapt and started forcing itself back into Genusai's ass. His face got twice as red as when the monkey came out and he passed out from the strain. "Anybody else want to question my work?" said Thymysticles with a sadistic smirk that would have made Zaraki proud. Everybody shook their heads. "I don't think anybody would after that, Thymysticles Sama," said Soifin. "Farewell, bye-bye," he said, and just like that he was gone. It was like he was never there to begin with, if it weren't for Genusai, that is. "But the buck just happened," yelled Byakuya as he ripped out 2 giant handfuls of hair. Chapter 5. Battle of Sankyoku Hill Part 1. Ichigo was having the time of his life. He didn't know why, but the thrill of battle, the chance he could die this very day, didn't frighten him. No, it excited him. He finally understood what Zaraki was talking about when they battled. His smile slowly turned from Lady Killer to Zarakis's maniacal grin. Byakuya and Soifin would swear until the day they died again that they were fighting a reincarnation of Zaraki. Hell, they even thought they saw a yellow silhouette of the giant former captain behind him a few times. "Come on, you two can do better than this. Show me your true power. I want a fight to be remembered," he called to them as he dodged Byakuya's blade and caught Soifin's with Zanjetsu. "What the hell is this kid? I swear he must be channeling Zaraki or something to fight like this," said Soifin in disbelief. "It matters not. Chirson Banzakura," said Byakuya as he released his Shikai. Ichigo grinned wider as he started fighting with increased vigor. "Now we're talking. Shu Zanjetsu," he called, releasing the Shikai of his first blade. Energy exploded from his body in a massive wave, dispelling the conglomeration of sakura petals from converging upon him. He rushed Byakuya and swung Zanjetsu in a wide arc, forcing him to recall the blade to block. Soifin took advantage of his open side and attacked again. He proved to be more flexible than they anticipated by bringing Kanshiki, who was on the opposite side, above his head and twisting her to block the incoming strike. "Why don't you just die?" she yelled in frustration, trying to push past his defense. "Irioka," said a voice behind Ichigo. He turned to see a Shinigami from the first squad raised a battle axe that was his zanpakuto. They all heard a high ululation as a battle cry and saw the man get decked and sent flying 10 feet away unconscious. They followed the fist to the source to find Hinataro. "Thought you could use some help," he said as he jumped away to help another 11th squad member. "Great, more traitors," said Byakuya in annoyance. Ichigo was about to respond when he felt something was wrong. He couldn't tell exactly what, but it didn't matter for now. But Unohana and Orihime, both women, were furious, and the battle that raged between them was testimony to that. Both of them moved as if they had battled for all eternity. The grace was unimaginable. The damage they were causing even more so. "Why?" asked Unohana, her eyes narrowed. To many this would have been far too vague, but Orihime understood her completely. "Because I love him," she replied. "He murdered my fiancé," retorted Unohana. "He is my fiancé," she replied, blocking an overhead strike. "How could you choose to be with someone like that? A murderer?" asked Unohana as she blocked a horizontal strike. "Many would have said the same to you about Zaraki," retorted Orihime as she jumped back to dodge the downswing from Unohana. "They are not the same," she yelled, tears flowing once again down her face. "Yes, they are," Orihime yelled back, kicking Unohana in the stomach, catching her off guard and removing her zanpakuto from her grasp. Orihime stood over her with Tsubaki pointed at her throat, panting with exertion and sweat pouring down her in waves. Unohana just hung her head and surrendered to her grief again. "I loved him and now he's gone," she said as more tears slid down her porcelain face. "Then you should understand why I fight for my Kenpachi. You loved Zaraki-san, and I love Kurosaki-kun, and I refuse to lose him. Not now, not ever, especially since I just got him," replied Orihime, lowering her blade and letting him return to his usual form. "What do you mean?" asked Unohana. "I loved him ever since I was in middle school. Back then kids used to pick on me every day. They were all jealous of how long my hair was and of its unusual color. One day some girls went too far and cut it short and in the end made me cry. Kurosaki-kun saw what happened and comforted me in a small way. He sat there, rubbed my back and listened to me vent. But what really endeared me to him was what happened not even a week later. My older brother, the only family I had left, and I argued over something stupid. That night we didn't even talk during dinner, then he left for work and I still didn't say a word. On his way to work he got into an accident and needed to be rushed to a hospital. Kurosaki-kun lives in a clinic run by his dad and that was where they took him for his initial treatment. They rushed me there to see him in case he didn't make it. Kurosaki-kun saw me as I was yelling at Sora to be alright. They loaded him up to transfer him to a regular hospital and then put me in with them. Kurosaki-kun left without telling his family and sat with me all the way there and in the hospital. He held me as I cried and comforted me when they delivered the news that Sora died. He was so strong, he had just lost his own mother several months before and here he was comforting me. I fell in love with him that very moment, but I never knew if he would feel the same for me. I was nervous and shy and I could never tell him because I never wanted to be rejected. So I just watched him from afar, cursing myself for my cowardice. Only since we came here did he ever show me his true feelings. I love him, he loves me, and I know both of these things without a single doubt in my mind, said Orihime. Anohana was speechless as she listened. It stunned her to learn these things and made her really think about what was going on. She shunpoed away without another word, desperate to find the questions that belonged to the answers she now had. But Kujiranai, Yumichika, and Ikaku. Alright, you two remember what Kenpachi said Kujiranai as he drew his zanpakuto to clash with several 1st Division members. No holding back, answered Ikaku, blocking a strike from above. No limitations, answered Yumichika as he kicked away another Shinigami. Just fight with everything you have, all three yelled as one. Say career, it doesn't matter what you can do. It doesn't matter what you know. If it can be used in combat, use it. If you know Keto, use it. If your zanpakuto isn't a direct combat type, release it and fight from a distance. If you can use any form of release, use whatever you got. Combat is battle is war, and there are no rules to war. Anything that is used in fights is combat, so when we storm Sankyoku Hill, don't hold back. Never hold back, because that is not the way of the 11th Division. We fight with everything we have, and we are the reason that wars are won. They were inspiring words and everyone took them to heart. Their battle prowess skyrocketed. Now they doubted that even the Satecho could stand up against several of their members if they banded together. Bankai Rickman Zukimaru called Ikaku, making numerous eyes go wide at seeing a feat they never believed possible. Someone that wasn't even close to captain class released a Bankai. They shuddered at the thought of who else kept secrets like that hidden. Odashira Urukage Kusari, yelled Kujiranai. His zanpakuto transformed from a blade to a battle chain. The links were pitch black and the weight on the end was a large conical pendulum, also black. The handle stayed as the hilt of his sword. Okay, here is how it's gonna go. I'm gonna take on Tosen. Yumichika, you take on his Fukatecho. Kujiranai, you just choose whomever and make sure you kick their ass, said Ikaku as he leapt into battle with a blind Taicho, Yumichika close on his heels. Okay, now who to fight, Kujiranai said to himself, looking around. He saw Kiin attempting to stall Jin Ichimaru and failing miserably. Why not, he said and leapt into battle. You're being quite the pest, I think I'll get rid of you, said Jin, his creepy smile never leaving his face. He raised his zanpakuto to end her life in a single stroke. As he brought it down, a clang of metal meeting metal rang throughout the area and it never fell any further than just above his head. Now is there really a need to exert such violence against such a beautiful woman? Besides, you have bigger things to worry about, said a voice from behind him. He glanced back in shock to see Kujiranai holding the hilt of his released zanpakuto, a length of the chain wrapped around his own blade, stopping it from going any further. Not bad, kid, not many could stop a Taicho intent on killing someone. But you even diverted my attention enough to let her think she could get a strike in, said Ichimaru as he turned just as Kiin's blade struck home. However, much to her dismay and terror, there wasn't a mark on him from her attack. Ikaris Shinzum, said Jin as he thrust his zanpakuto forward to spear her. Before he could make it though, she was gone in a flash. He sensed a person to his left and saw Kujiranai standing there holding Kiin bridal style with a murderous look in his eyes. I was willing to let it slide once with an ass kicking, but you just had to go and piss me off. First you attack my love, then you try to kill her right in front of me, and finally you don't even know how to use that blade the proper way, said Kujiranai, glaring at him. I don't know how to use my own zanpakuto, May. Well, then you'll just have to take it by force and teach me, won't you, he said mockingly. Gladly, said Kujiranai from behind him again. Jin's eyes widened as he didn't even sense him until he spoke. As far as he knew, not even Yoruichi could accomplish something like that. Before he could react any further, he felt a kick to his back. It lifted him off his feet, but before he could go flying, Kujiranai was in front of him and sent him sailing upwards with a powerful uppercut with the heel of his hand. Finally, with a knee to his arm, he lost his grip on his zanpakuto. He skidded several feet away holding his arm as it was going slightly numb from the impact. Well, you actually managed to make me lose my grip. Now all you have to do is show me what I was doing wrong, said Jin sarcastically. You're a dumbass. You want to see how to properly use her, then just give me a minute, said Kujiranai. Hello Shinzum, would you be willing to work with me and Kage Kusari, he asked, the blade in his hands. Now why would I want to do something like that, asked a feminine voice. Because unlike your current master, I will not treat you like a slave or tool. You will be treated as a partner, just like Kage Kusari, he replied. The boy is right, Shinzum. He has never treated me with anything other than respect. Hell, I would even go as far as to say I like the kid, said Kage Kusari in a deep echoic voice. You like somebody? I never thought I would see the day when a shadow type zanpakuto actually likes its wielder. Well, just being treated with respect doesn't mean I'll go with you, she replied calmly. What would you say if I told you that I would use your power the way it was meant to be used, he asked. "Where the hell is the dotted line?" she shouted enthusiastically. Kajiranai just chuckled and cracked his neck. "Oh Jin, it looks like I get to show you how this beautiful blade should be used. Now Shinzam," he said, shooting her right towards Jin. He jumped to the left thinking it was an easy victory even without his zanpakuto. He saw Kajiranai move his hands in a strange manner but put it off and charged. He saw Kajiranai smirk and felt a pain shoot up through his back. He looked behind him and saw to his horror a blade sticking out of his back. He followed it back to the source and saw it began curving. He kept following it until he saw to his disbelief it was Shinzam. The blade had twisted and curved to come around behind him to stab him in the back. "How?" he asked in awe. Simple, Shinzam isn't a normal blade. The extension is not the limit of her power. She can twist, turn, arc, and any number of other things to reach her target, assuming her wielder is competent enough to use her properly. You see, Jin Shinzam is an Yurumi, a long thin flexible blade that with the right movements can slip around allies to attack enemies, attack from behind, or attack multiple enemies in different places with little effort. In the right hand she can become a power like no other, but in your hand she is little more than a spear for all you can do. I think she has made her choice just by letting me use her answer should be more than clear. You have just become a zanpakuto-less captain, and with the loss of Shinzam comes a loss of at least a quarter of your power. My power on the other hand has only increased, said Kajiranai with a small smile. Everyone in hearing distance was stunned and terrified. Things just got a hell of a lot more complicated for the Shinigami loyal to Yamamoto, and that much easier to those who are loyal to Ichigo. With you Michika, Shike, I really wish I could convince you to join us. Your skill could be very useful in the 11th division. But since you seem to be attached to the hip with your captain, I use Taicho, Captain, Fukatecho, and Lieutenant interchangeably, I will just have to defeat you beautifully, said Yumichika, slightly creeping his opponent out. Those are some big words coming from an 11th division failure, he replied, the insult directed at his zanpakuto. Well, at least I don't fear my partner. Sure, I didn't get along that well before, but then my captain pointed out that anything and everything can be used in combat. He showed us that holding back is just as much an insult to ourselves as it is to our opponent. So from now on I will not shy away from using my zanpakuto to his full potential just because he is a kitten type. No, I shall embrace him as a partner, no, as a brother, like I should have done from the beginning. As my captain said once before, I'm fighting side by side with him. I'll never lose to someone who only fights by himself. You who has always feared his blade has rejected his partner and given up a strength that should have been his from the beginning. You have crippled yourself, and in that you have given me the advantage I need, said Yumichika proudly. Shike just stood there stunned as Yumichika's words sunk in. He never even saw the attack coming until he was wrapped in the kitten vines and they were draining him of all Ryatsu. Flowers started blooming along the vines as the Ryatsu filled them to the brim. So what now, asked Shike in a weak, tired voice. You full boss pseudo, Yumichika replied calmly as all the flowers exploded at one time, making a plume of fire 30 feet high. Shike fell forward completely unconscious. Yumichika never wanted to kill him, so he absorbed the majority of the Ryatsu and used the bare minimum for the explosion. Afterwards he split the energy with Rurokujaku, making both feel much better. You spoke beautifully to him, Yumichika. I'm sure you just gave him the push he needed to accept his zanpakuto, said Rurokujaku softly. I hope so. Ever since Kurosaki Taicho showed us the error of our thinking, I have been regretting ever coming up with that stupid nickname for you. You deserve my respect and much more than I can give you right now. I just hope in the future I can feel worthy of being partnered with such a magnificent blade, thought Yumichika sadly. Sigh, Yumichika, you actually came up with a good idea in the nickname. Though I may hate it, there are some instances where a kitten-type weapon may come at a disadvantage. That melee form could save your life one of these days. With it you made me even more versatile than I was before, and that alone will give you an advantage. Thus don't use it every time you need me, said Rurokujaku with a chuckle. Thank you, replied Yumichika as he went out to continue battling for his captain. With Akaku, why do you stray from the path of justice, Akaku asked Tosen as he blocked a strike from the bald-headed man. Stray from justice? What the hell are you talking about? This is war, and in war you follow your commander, in this case it is Kurosaki Taicho, replied Akaku. But he killed Zaraki in cold blood, said Tosen, who furrowed his brow. He may have never liked Zaraki, but neither could he condone his death. First off, it was an accident, secondly 11th division is built for combat. We don't care who leads us, just so long as they are strong. Kurosaki Taicho has proven that he is both stronger and smarter than Zaraki Taicho by beating him and increasing the battle prowess of the division in general, said Akaku as he jumped over a horizontal strike and lashed out with the blade on his back. Tosen dodged but just barely. I still don't see why you follow him, said Tosen with a frown. Yeah, I guess that would only come from actually understanding us. We don't care about justice. We don't care who was right or who was wrong. We care about war because in war we have a purpose. Everyone in 11th division has only one purpose: to fight. We have no other skills than war. We don't communicate, we don't give a rat's ass about the rules, we don't even give a flying buck about advancing technology. Those things are out of our grasp. So we concentrate in the one area our talents do not falter, in battle, said Ikaku. His conviction stunned Tosin for a moment, which was all that was needed to land a decisive blow on him. Now your mind, said Yumichika as Ruriiro Kujika's vines ensnared his arms and legs from behind. What a cowardly move, said Tosin, trying to hit a sore spot. Cowardly? You're a bucking captain. We do what we need to win. Sneak attacks, attacking in groups, hell even distraction, it's all legal, said Ikaku as he charged forward and landed a devastating blow to Tosin's torso. Blood poured out of him as he fell to his knees, the blood loss and Ryatsu drained too much for him, he passed out. Okay, where to next, asked Yumichika. Think we should help Kajira and I think he went after Ichimaru, said Ikaku. I don't think we'll be needed, said Yumichika with a sweat drop. Why, asked Ikaku. Yumichika just pointed behind him to Kajiranai, who was wailing on Ichimaru with both of the zanpakuto in his hands. Okay, on to plan B, said Ikaku. Plan B, asked Yumichika. Yup, we grab a bag of popcorn and enjoy the show, said Ikaku as he pulled a chair out of nowhere and sat on it facing the ass kicking that Ichimaru was receiving. Works for me, said Yumichika as he copied Ikaku. Back with Kajiranai. You're not bad, kid, said Jin as he tried to dodge another strike from Shinzum, only to walk into Kage Kusari. You're not too shabby yourself without his zanpakuto. However, I'm still holding back, said Kajiranai with a smirk. Oh really, then why not fight at full, asked Jin as he narrowly avoided the weight of Kage Kusari and the blade of Shinzum. Your funeral, Kage Kusari, Katsu, he said. The chain started changing. The links sharpened and started to become serrated. The weight started caving in at 4 key points, making 4 blades that looked extremely sharp. Then those 4 blades also serrated. In a matter of seconds the entire chain turned into a vicious-looking bladed chain. Jin's eyes widened at seeing the weapon. Now he didn't have to worry about being captured, he just had to worry about being ripped to shreds or cut to ribbons or both. Who was he kidding? He was royally bucked, but that didn't mean he couldn't try to bluff his way out of it. You know, that little change won't do much, he replied. True, but then again I'm not done, said Kajiranai with a smirk. Before anyone could ask what he meant, he pulled off his upper shuhakishim spelling and threw it into the air. It moved much slower than it should have. When it landed, instead of a small thump that one would hear from cloth landing, a huge crash was heard and a plume of dust rose from the ground. Jin looked back at Kajiranai to see what he really looked like. Kajiranai had always worn a hood with his shuhakishim for whatever reason. It had hidden the majority of his features. Now everyone could see, and it scared 6 shades of shit out of most of them. His hair was lava red, at least shoulder length, and spiked back and down, think of Sonic the Hedgehog and a goatee. His eyes were a piercing steel gray that held no mercy. He stood at an imposing height of 6'4", and his torso was ripped. It was also riddled with scars. That was unexpected. Kind of reminds me of the Satacho, said Jin as he stroked his chin. That senile old buck hasn't got shit on me. Well, he has strength, I have something so much better, said Kajiranai. As he finished he disappeared and reappeared behind Jin. As he did, approximately 21 low-ranking Shinigami around them fell with cries of pain as their bones snapped. My specialty was never with a zanpakuto, but instead that of Hakuto and Kido. However, that doesn't mean I don't have good skills, said Kajiranai as he disappeared again to reappear to the right of Jin. This will not end well, said Jin as his ass-kicking began again. Back with Ichigo. Why don't you just give up, boy, said Byakuya as he was slowly losing his patience. Because it's more fun to piss in your porridge, retorted Ichigo as he jumped over Soifin and kicked Byakuya in the face. Okay, I'm really getting pissed off here, said Soifin. Better than being pissed on, said Ichigo with a cheeky grin. That actually got her to crack a grin of her own despite the situation. You can cut the cheek, you know, she said. But that would ruin a perfectly good ass, he said, looking at his ass with a frown. Soifin couldn't help but chuckle, and even Byakuya had to smirk at the play on words. However, it didn't last long as he became business less than 3 seconds later. You have irked me for the last time, boy. It is time I finish this, prepare yourself. Bankai, said Byakuya as he dropped his sword point first into the ground. Instead of sticking, it sank into the ground and disappeared. Ichigo actually became slightly worried when he saw the 2 rows of gargantuan blades rise up from the ground. Fuck me, he said. The blades burst into millions of sakura petals right before his very eyes. Fuck me sideways, he said just before he narrowly avoided the tendrils of extremely sharp blades. Yes, I'll have to take it up a notch now, Batsu Kanshiki called Ichigo, releasing his second blade. His left hand wore the gauntlet as he wielded Zanjetsu with his right. I didn't know you could use 2 zanpakuto and shikai at the same time, said Soifin as she looked at her own shikai and saw a resemblance between it and Kanshiki. Boy Suzumabachi, didn't you say that you had a sister zanpakuto, asked Soifin curiously. Yes, I do, but I haven't seen her in such a long time, replied the tiny fairy sadly. Her name wouldn't have been Kanshiki, would it, asked Soifin, her curiosity piqued. Yes, it was. How did you know? Asked Suzumabachi, stunned. That's the name the kid called to release his second zanpakuto, replied Soifin. Pair Ioka, which of those two blades was originally yours? Asked Soifin, while Ichigo dodged another tendril of blades. Why do you want to know? Asked Ichigo, who never took his eyes off Byakuya. I just want to confirm something, she said. Zangetsu was my first zanpakuto, and Kanshiki I got after I killed Zaraki, replied Ichigo as he slashed at Byakuya. Well, that at least explains why you didn't know where she was, said Soifin with a sweat drop. Use me to strike Kanshiki. I want to talk with my sister for a moment, said Suzumabachi without her usual hyper energy. It actually made Soifin shiver at how serious she sounded. She complied and struck right on the blades. Inside a swordscape, zanpakuto spirits will have normal speech. Suzumabachi floated around in a barren wasteland filled with rivers of molten lava. The occasional outcropping of rock spewed more of the viscous molten rock at random times. In the distance was a gargantuan mountain that seemed to float roughly a mile above the ground. On the mountain was a paradise of lush green, fruit-bearing trees. Pastures with multitudes of animals and plants dotted around it, and at the very top was a palace of pure marble. Whistle, little sis did some serious remodeling since I last saw her, said Suzumabachi to herself. But I did, Ni-chan. Tell me what you think of our battlefield, asked Kanshiki as she gestured around their surroundings. Nice, very nice. I assume you did this so that your palace doesn't get wrecked when you have an unruly visitor, asked Suzumabachi curiously. Yes, and it also reflects my elements as well. Earth and fire, a devastating combination if used properly, said Kanshiki as she watched another gout of lava burst from a pillar. A nice touch with the pillars as well. From what I can tell, it's kind of like being judged worthy of heaven or banished into the depths of hell, said Suzumabachi. I was going for that. You know, psychology is half the battle. If my enemies believe I can send them to a hellish plane, then they believe I have powers akin to a kami. Most of them would be so psyched out they couldn't concentrate on actually fighting me, said Kanshiki. It also goes along with your name, Judgment. Very clever, little sister. But for the real reason I'm here, why have you betrayed us? Asked the little fairy sadly. I did not betray you. You can blame this on Zaraki if you want. Never learning my name, never even listening to me. The bastard even had the gall to give me to someone else. Though I have to say it was at least someone worthy of wielding me. I must follow my wielder. Ichigo became my wielder by right of conquest when Zaraki bestowed me to him with his dying breath. I'll tell you this now though, sister, do not fight Kenpachi Kurosaki. He is stronger than you can ever imagine, and his power will keep increasing by magnitudes. When Kenpachi gave Ichigo his name and me, he also gave him a boost of power that doubled his original spiritual pressure. Couple that with the fact that he has learned both Zangetsu's and my Bankai. Right now he is holding back, testing himself to find his level. When he finally decides to fight for real, get Soifin away from him because he will not pull a punch simply because she is a woman. Soifin will die because she will face her worst opponent, a master of his own blades, said Kanshiki with total seriousness in her voice. Before the fairy could respond, she felt a tugging sensation on her back and was flung from the swordscape and back into her own. Back in the real world, Soifin pulled back just as Ichigo was swinging the massive form of Zangetsu, nearly clipping her cheek. She moved a safe distance back and observed Byakuya attempt to kill him once again with his Bankai. Soifin, do not re-engage that man. I just had a very informative talk with my little sister. To put it simply, he is holding back, and if you keep fighting him when he gets serious, you will die, said Suzumabachi. How can you be certain? Asked Soifin curiously. What do you call knowing the Bankai of both Zanpakuto, yet still only using Shikai? My little sister is known for never telling a lie, so anything she says is true. I think the best thing we can do right now is assist Ichimaru and let Byakuya get himself killed. You are my first and only priority, Shaolin Fawn. No matter how much we disagree, you are my partner, and all I do is in your best interest, said Suzumabachi in a voice that Soifin had never heard before. And was dead serious, absolutely nothing like the hyperactive fairy she usually deals with. Alright, I'll trust you. You have always fought with me, and our relationship is a two-way street. Now I'll fight as you suggest, said Soifin as she leapt away. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.